West, y'all.
But the podcast, I got another podcast at 5.
Oh, why was I thinking the game was at midday?
I think it was it?
Yeah, I'll probably have a look after.
I think I saw 4
No,
on the social media. But
I know.
yeah, I said, because I knew I had you to come in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet, I can still watch them on the Samoa game in the afternoon. Because I thought I saw it was at 4 o'clock, and then, but I actually booked another podcast for the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to be after you.
Yeah.
And I asked the guest that's going to come on later on.
Yeah. Who you got coming on after?
They are a duo, two girls. They run a fitness thing.
Oh.
I think it's called Fusion.
Oh.
Yeah. Look at me, don't even. But that's why I get them in so I can talk about it. But you know, like, I know the game's at 4 o'clock, but they're coming in at 5.
Yeah.
So probably just have to put it on.
Nah, I think the game's
record.
at midday. Midday. Because if it's in Samoa, it would be like around 2 or 3. So that would be like 1 hour behind, yeah. Because they play it like 2 or 3, like around that time.
Yeah.
Because it would be at 4, then it would be 5 there, but I think they might. But yeah, just check again. Because I think TV1's live streaming it.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. And Sky, I think, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Did you watch the game last week?
Yeah. I was
good,
watching it, and I had to go watch my cousin. He plays for the Canterbury Rams. Well, he's in the squad.
Oh.
They came and took out the NBL.
Yeah, I saw that. I was pretty sore on that one. Since Auckland got beaten by Canterbury in the Super Rugby, and now they took out the basketball, and I was like, come on, man. You can't get a guy like Corey Webster in not even halfway through the season and take over your team.
But even he doesn't even start. He doesn't start. If you watch how they play them, because I don't even know basketball that much, but I only like follow it because of my cousin.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even play in the team. He's like just a traveling reserve. If like worst comes to worst, he jumps on. So bro, he just pretty much came. We just like drank it out flat because they didn't worry about him where he stayed because he was like, oh, I'm staying with a relative, and they're like, oh yeah, that's good, saves us money for extra person hotel.
All right.
But like he has the gears, sits on the bench, taps the players when they come off and stuff.
Because he just came from his overseas contract now. That's
just
why. Yeah.
He's in Oz, I think. He plays in the I think the other competition that the Breakers are in. He plays with them.
Yeah, I see him as one of our top players here in New Zealand because he's put his toes in a lot of him in the NBA. Like he played summer league that year. Him and his brother.
But you watch him now. He's on that kind of. I like it when players do that. Like Sean Johnson now. They were like carving up back then, but now they're in that sort of like senior type role where it's like they know when to. Yeah. Because they played Otago Nuggets. That was the game I watched on the same day as Manu. And his brother was playing for them. I was at Ty Webster.
Ty Webster, yeah.
And he was doing handies, like going handies, but like Corey Webster was just picking his moments, and he ended up just like carving up in a real silent, subtle way, in a way.
Yeah. So your cousin plays for the Rams.
He's in the squad, but he's like, because he's just started this year. He's been trying to crack it for ages, but it's been hard. Yeah. And then like all of a sudden he like made it this year, so he works and then he also trains like with them. But he's like probably like 6th or 5th sub, so like he's way below in the squad.
Down the bench.
They always pick him because he's a bit taller. Right. So when like games are, because they came here for like quarters, semis, and then finals, so it was back to back. So they brought him in because they're like, oh, never know what happened. But he's just happy he's there. He's like, bro, I get to train with like these guys, and I'm still working, and he does get still paid from the basketball stuff too. Yeah. Then he gets to come up here and he's drinking with us. And then he was he brought along what's his name? Ty Wynyard? Yeah. So his little brother, who's also West, I think they're all West Auckland too. He came along with him because he's at Rams now too. He's in Christchurch. Oh. So they brought him, my cousin and him, the younger brother, like as the traveling reserves. So they both came to my flat. And he's tall, man, that kid. He's real tall. Yeah, hopefully he'll start for Rams next year. Both of them, hopefully they both start. Yeah.
You as a journalist, you cover a lot of sport. How do you find the New Zealand NBL? Like with Pacifica players, and how many of them are there? And
I mean, honestly, like I said, like, man, basketball is like, that is nowhere near where like I like of the expertise I wouldn't know. Like I wouldn't just come out and be like, oh yeah, I know it. But it's like I realized that a lot of it is, there is a lot of a big Pacific influence as there is in any sport. So it's something that I've been aware of now. And I know too because I'd have people talk about like, oh man, did you cover this? Like, do you know that this and this? And then I have my cousin who's in sort of it, and he's like telling me about it. So I guess from like a reporter type perspective, it's real cool, I guess, seeing a lot of Islanders do it. And I follow, I think, one guy, he's on the Saints team. But he does those kind of videos on TikTok. He uploads content like, I don't know, day in the life of someone, and he does that kind of. And I followed him, and I realized he plays for the Saints. I think it's Mani Mita or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's mean, I guess. It's in a sense where it's like, you know, you have all players doing their own thing, and they're just being themselves, I guess. Yeah, man.
Yeah, because I'm in the sports chat, right?
Yeah.
Who's not in the chat with sports, about sports with your mates and
NRL fantasy chats.
Yeah. And I think a topic came up on the chat about rugby and the numbers going down.
Yeah.
And you see, like, because it was around, because I don't know if you know the Polynesian basketball tournament that happens every year up in Trust Stadium.
Yeah. Was it last year too? They had one. They had a local team from Samoa come through. Is it that one? Or
I'm not too sure if it was Samoa team came, but I know there's like teams around Auckland and even Wellington around the country come up for it. So you got Samoan teams, you got Tongan teams, Fiji playing in this tournament. It's all the kids, right? But there's so many kids playing, and we're just wondering. We're just talking about how the numbers of rugby going down, and you know, if you're tall and you're young, I wonder you're going to be people going to incline to move you towards basketball because you're tall, and then you'll see that if you see the position of lock in rugby, there's not many tall locks anymore, especially unders because they're moving them to play basketball.
It's I think I watched something recently about they were talking about how that's the whole question everyone's asking about rugby, and I feel like rugby will always be the top sport. I always say that because it's like I didn't realize how big rugby was in New Zealand until I moved here from Samoa. But coming from Samoa, it's like you watch it a lot, but when you came here, it's like, bro, these guys are really, really into their rugby. Like you go down to like a football game or rugby game on the park, and you have like these old white men like come and watch, like who are followers of the club, and they sort of, you know, religiously follow it. And now that there's that talk, the only reason there's a talk, I guess, it's because there's all these other sports included, and you see it everywhere. But you're right about that, because I think a lot of Polynesian parents it's just the whole contact thing, I guess, putting their kids into a sport where it's like, but not even just basketball, football, like soccer. So it's not sad, I guess, but I guess it's sad that that's the conversation now about rugby dying. And I think that same thing that I watched, they went to Ponsonby and they asked the Ioane brothers' mum, because she's a big community helper in the team, and she said it herself. She said, we can barely field like a women's team on some Saturdays, or even some of the men's team. So she's like, well, if Ponsonby is failing, then that speaks for itself with other clubs. But yeah, I guess it's just those factors of the whole contact thing, and basketball just seems to be the go now, and then obviously you got social media. The NBA they put out their stars, great marketing, and you have kids here watching, and they're like, man, I want to be like that.
You got Steven Adams, you know, he's Tongan.
Yeah. And like, man, they've got money. Like, Steven Adams wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't come here for like so long, like a long time, and he'll just pop through with like this mean camp, give out gears. And you have rugby that's here who like, yeah, they're doing the same, but in terms of the extreme that Steven Adams can do it, and how much he can promise for like opportunities outside of New Zealand. So it's I guess it's all those things in factor. But I always believe that rugby will somehow still stay the more relevant sport, I guess. But who knows? I mean, it might change. So,
I think for me, like, it's good to have different sports, and for Pacificers to get into different sports, you know, that we haven't tried before, but they can dominate. I mean, when I think about America and the Williams sisters taking out sport like tennis, which is predominantly a white sport, or Tiger Woods taking out golf, which is predominantly a white sport. You know, we can sort of put our feet in these kind of places that we haven't been before, and dominate, especially Polynesian people with our genetic makeup and our physicality and all that. You know,
but it's just more so representation, because the whole natural talent thing, that's always going to be you can't disregard that. You see any poly that makes it into sports, but it's just little things like you see, like when they start talking about their family, and you can somehow relate to it because it's like you've gone through the same thing, and they talk about their parents and the struggles that they had to go through, and that everything that they're doing now is all owing to it. So I really like that aspect because it's like they're telling our story and stuff. But you're right about the whole physicality thing. It's they dominate. They dominate regardless because it's just the natural sort of talent thing. But yeah, I think in golf now, there's a kid. His last name is Jeremiah. They were talking about it at work, and he plays golf too now. And I think he's from NZ, I think. And you have Tony Finau, who's probably like carving it up right now, and he's probably one of the best at the moment. And that's golf. You never thought so that there would be any islanders there. So yeah, interesting to see the other new sports. Who knows? Like probably like just a weird random sport, and then there's an islander there. So it's like cool seeing that.
Yeah. And that's probably what we're talking about. With, I'm not saying basketball's taking the players out of rugby, because we love rugby, but it's good to see other sports coming up there.
It's real good. It creates opportunities, I guess, of rugby players, younger kids that probably are like not finding it in rugby, but can carve up in any other sport, and that's their way of going through. But not just most opportunities, but just having something for the younger generation. There's a lot of kids now too, so it's if you have all these sports and that they can find stuff there, and it's good for them, I guess, good for themselves, just socialize and make a lot of mates, I guess, sort of thing.
With you and your work, like you're a reporter, and you cover a lot of sports. Is that your specialty?
Oh, bro, so it was funny because when I did the interview, getting the job, I originally applied online because they put up a post, and it's originally for the TP Plus. So that's the online website. So we have the show, which has been a staple in the New Zealand Pacific community.
Tanganza Pacific.
Yeah, every Saturday, every Sunday. But the post online was more so asking for people, reporters on TP Plus, which is like an online presence. So it's like that's including our Instagram, social media. Because before that, it was just the show. There was just nothing else. But then they realized now, oh man, like that's the way to go now. Like have stories, the show's stories online, but also have our own little wee stories online, and then have Instagram, Facebook. So they asked that because they just started, doing that.
When did they start that? Because I can't remember when I first started seeing that place, TP Plus.
Yeah, it's like hope it's obviously you see, and it's the thing that you look at TVNZ, TVNZ Plus, something
Apple
TV,
Plus,
Apple Plus. So it's like it's like this new thing. I think they would have started it a few years back, 3-4 years, just figuring out that man, it's like we can have something that's been in the game for a long time, the show, but having an online presence too is where it's at right now. So I jumped on, applied, but originally I was applying for something else because this was when I was finishing up at uni, and now the chat was not when you're graduating, but bro, when are you going to get a job? And so it's like the chat shifted real quick from that. Like my dad was on my case about when you're graduating, and I was like, now when are you going to get a job, sort of thing. So I was applying for something else in Christchurch, but this I was like, I'll just do it just in case. And I actually never thought I'd get it because it was just like one of those, when you apply for something, there's like always that other one where it's like, that's the one I really want. Which I'm not saying that, TP was, but it was always there. So I was like, but my chances of getting it, I was realizing, man, there's going to be heaps of people applying for this.
So you just wanted your foot in the door?
Yeah. So I was like,
somehow.
And I've just finished uni. So I'm like, there's going to be a big criteria of like, who's been in the game for a bit. So there might be someone that applies that's done already media stuff. So, but somehow they emailed me back and they texted back, and we just had the interview. And it was just fortunate enough that I jumped on the interview and we were chatting, and John Utanga, who's our producer and also one of our bosses, he's a big fan. Like he's a big sports fan. And this is like, every time I talk to that guy about sports, it's crazy the knowledge he has in terms of Pacific sports. And then he was like, you like sports? And I was like, yeah, I like sports. And then I also have a sports page. And I just saw it, and he was just like liking it. And I was like, or is this me getting the job already? And then we just chatted, and then they started talking about how TP, it'll be good to have someone that talks about sports. But to me, it was like sports was just a thing I'd watch and be like just chatting along people. But to write it down and to actually like follow it, I didn't see it as that way. Anyways, got the job, jumped on, and then we just started from there. But you got to learn somehow, and like I can honestly say I'm more confident in writing rugby, but that's not just the sport that's been covered. There's a lot more sports, so it's I was like, okay, yeah, I obviously love sports. I've got a passion, so now time to work on it. And it grows over the years, and hopefully it's improving. Hopefully people are reading it. I don't want anyone reading something I write about basketball and they catch up my blah, blah. Well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, you know? But it's good that we have a good team. And like, you know, my boss, John Utang, that I just mentioned before, he's always in there helping out, subbing out stuff and reading it through. And it's like, oh, you know, if you want to talk about this, you can write it through this way, just to sort of simplify it in a way. But yeah, it's a good place to be here, Auckland. It's where it's at in terms of a lot of sports things. But yeah, it's just a lot of learning and progress, I guess. So,
yeah. Because your journey coming in here, like coming to here, like you're from Christchurch, but you're originally from Samoa.
Yeah, man.
So you went to school there, and you grew up there and went to school there.
Yeah. So it's always a funny story because it's always the other way around. When you talk to people, it's always they were born in Samoa but raised in New Zealand.
Right.
But for this instance, I was born in New Zealand because Mum, she's a New Zealand-born Samoan, so she's from Christchurch. But Dad was straight from Sa, and Dad went to Ma'alua. My parents are church ministers for the Ethics Church back in Samoa. And then Dad married Mum. They moved to Samoa. But Mum just happened to be here too. It was me and my sister, and she gave birth to me and my sister when she was here. And it never really struck me on like the importance of that. But somehow now that I moved here for uni and for work, the whole citizenship thing came in play, and it was really handy because, like, say for instance at uni, I was able to apply for like student loan and all that. But yeah, born here in 1998, moved back to Samoa straight away, and then just lived there, grew up, got raised by my mum and dad. And
what school did you go to?
Oh, I started at Robert Louis Primary School.
All right.
And then when my parents got the calling for the ministry, Dad graduated in 95 at Ma'alua. So from 95 to 2008, Dad was still working. But when 2008, when we got the ministry call up, we moved to Sava'i. So this is Robert Louis, and I'm moving to Sava'i. And yeah, it was. I think it was a big shock for me being in town because I'd never been to Sava'i all those years I was there. And then I went to Eva Primary School because we're based in Eva for the ministry. And did a bit there. Then when I moved into college, I went back to Robert Louis. And then in my last 2 years at high school, I just came back to Sava'i and finished it off. And Viola College, which is the Mormon school.
Oh, yeah.
You know Pesinga College?
Yeah.
So that's like the Sava'i version of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, just finished there and somehow ended up here in New Zealand. And then that all came to play, you know. So it's like, well, I'm here now. And I sort of like saw what Mum sort of saw back then of like the opportunities that I would get now just because I was born here.
Yeah.
You know, I never really thought about it, but now I came here, I'm like, man, I'm grateful, man. I'm really grateful for that. I talked to a lot of my mates from Samoa that come here who are not citizens, and it's hard, like, in terms of their journey trying to get to that citizenship thing. But the benefits I had just because I was a citizen, and I was like out of the country for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm grateful for that. And then, that's how I ended up here.
And then, did you know what you wanted to be when you came back? Like, did you know you're gonna be a journalist or a reporter?
Nah, I didn't, honestly. Like, when you start out like as a young kid, you really don't know what you wanted to be.
Well, what were you really good at when you're coming up through school and that?
I'll start off with what I wanted to be. When I was young, my mum always used to tell me, like, oh, I want to, I want to go anywhere. And this is me, like, primary school, and I was like, yo, that's me, I want to be a pilot. And I moved up and I realized you had to be good at maths. I was like, oh, no, that's not me, that's not a pilot. But I was always good in, I like to write a lot. Yeah. I used to love, I still do write a lot. But it was one of those, and I was a real, how would you say it? It was, you were always, like, you had so much in your head, like you had a lot to express, sort of thing. Like, I don't know if it's like.
So were you writing lyrics like for rap music, or
like kind of that, like you thought you were the man and sort of writing stuff like that, and yeah, it was weird. But when I moved to like sort of college in Samoa, it's like you choose an option around year 12 and year 13. I don't know if they still do that. So you do a full science or full arts or full commerce program, and that sets you up for like how you go on later on.
Oh, that's interesting. So. Yeah.
I don't know if they still do it now, but
do they do it here in New Zealand? Or?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. But maybe it's similar to New Zealand.
That sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you're like sixth form, when I was in school, it was forms.
Yeah.
Sixth form, and then seventh form, like, it's like you're your bursary year. You have to pass to get bursary, then you can go to uni, right? So, but probably sixth form, you're at the age where you're probably on the cusp of knowing what you want to be, right? You got to go towards that way.
You've got some idea.
You've got some idea. You don't know, but at least you know. Because if you split up in those general commerce, arts, and what was that one? Science. Then, man, you know what you're good at. These three, you know what you're gonna pick, and then if you go in there, that might branch off to what you want to be. Yeah, because you're good at arts, you're good at science, you're good at chemistry and all that kind of stuff. I'm not, but you're good at arts, sports, and being arts.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but so that's. And then when I was in year 12 and year 13, I still didn't know of these three fields, but somehow I was more inclined to go to arts because of the whole geography writing thing. But my dad, he wanted me to go science. He wanted me. It was just this massive chat about, I want to see one of my kids be a doctor sort of thing, which I had no problem with. I was like, oh, yeah. And my sister, who was 3 years before me, she did arts, and she was already on her scholarship at Victoria by then. So, that came into play, and then I was like, oh, yeah. So I did science. I can honestly say I actually enjoyed it, but it wasn't enjoying it to a moment where I would see myself doing it. I loved chemistry. I really did love chemistry. Biology and that was good, but chemistry was the goal, man. And I had a tutor in Savai. He was one of the school teachers for a government college, but he was I think he's one of the first few masters for science, if I'm correct, in Savai. And we had a tutor in his house, and this is in Samoa, in Savai. And that's where I sort of got the love for it. And it was all the balancing equations and stuff. And I really enjoyed it, really, really enjoyed it. But I realized that after you're 13, you go into uni, it gets bigger, it's you're not talking about just your normal chemical reactions. You're starting to branch onto things. And I didn't really see it like something like that. I hadn't told my dad. Still sitting the exams, the NCA type exams in Samoa, they're called. School C, and I don't know what the other one's called now, but still sat those through and got my marks and everything. So I finished up and I had no idea. And then I told my dad, I was like, look, man, I feel like I need to do arts. So there was a massive convo about that. And I joined arts, and it was all this stuff about geography and history of people. But I always knew that there was the writing. There was always that writing thing that, was always there. And it was always something was a strength. And I forgot to mention, I used, the Samoa Observer, the newspaper. Yeah. I used to write poems for them.
Oh, really?
They had a poem corner. This is how corny.
And they published it?
Was it? Yeah, they published it. And there'll be other poets there too. This is how corny it was. I was just writing stuff like that. I'd stick up the Samoa Observer stuff about sports pieces on my room and stuff. One Samoa Sevens when they were peaking at 09, 010 and stuff.
So that's your creative mind, just
that was me, man. And I would love sports. It's Samoa, you gotta love sports somehow. And and about the writing thing, always there with me. And ended up here 2016, 17, and this time I was going to enroll at uni with just me. I wasn't with anyone, and then I went there, and Palangiza, when you go to enroll, they're real good with you. They give out all the options. So I was going there, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do arts. And I got there, and they gave me this massive speech about how your career can be set up with your decisions and that. And this is at Canterbury, University of Canterbury. And this was a bridging course because I didn't do NCA. I couldn't jump straight into it. So this was a 3-month course that you can do to bridge into uni. And then I did media. I took media courses, and straight from the get-go, I liked it. I told my dad and mom, and I guess at that point, they were so tired of me trying to figure out stuff, so they're like, oh, you know what, that's what you want to do, then do it. And obviously, because they're in Samoa now, so I was like, you can say whatever, man, but I'm still signing up. And initially it was law. But then I was like, man, I could barely do science, so why am I going to jump on this massive scale? Hopefully later on. So I was like, I'll start with media. And then, I realized, man, this is where it's been sitting, the whole watching games and talking all about these stats. And I was like, but this is where it's at. And then just followed along. Then when I started uni, then that's when you went into the courses, the real big theory lectures about media and stuff. And all these Balangi kids there, it was crazy. And
Canterbury University, I think there's two Am I right saying there's 2 top journalism courses in New Zealand? Mm-hmm. It's the AUT one and Canterbury
So
University.
It's not UC. It's the media. There's a media journalist school called uni there.
Yeah, that's the top one, eh?
Yeah. There's a lot of reporters now that have come through that, the main ones. So that's like the real hands-on practical journalists. That's the straight. Yeah.
Is that the course you did?
No, I was at uni. They're at Polytech. They're near there. Because Polytech is more like hands-on,
right?
Which is something that is good for jobs like this, like learn how to control radio, like the stuff like this, mixing, mic and all that, how to do your voice and everything, reading voiceovers. At uni, we were just learning about like the history of the world media and everything, racism and media, how you deal. But this is like lectures and you're writing down notes. But it's different when you're like actually doing it and you're actually sitting in a radio broadcast, learning how to do it, mixing and everything. Because these are the stuff you need to do when you get into. You can't just sign up to like a radio show and and they're like, you know how to mix.
They have to teach you how to.
Yeah. So like that's and I know a lot of reporters that have come out of that. But I was at uni, and initially the plan was to go there because that was the sort of the thing afterwards. Everyone talks about they're like, we'll go journalist school after. That's the plan there for a lot of the media students. But then I finished uni and. Yeah, this came up, and I was like, look, this is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and if I am saying that I want to learn hands-on, this is the place to learn hands-on at work. And it's Pacific people, it's the crew there, they understand, because when I told them my story, they're like, oh, bro, we're all still learning, so I sort of came to that conclusion, like, don't be scared of what you're not knowing to do, because I feel like at that point, I was like, you've got to be at this peak. But I was like, every day you're learning. So that's where I'm at right now. I still like, man, my writing, like my subbing when I send it to my boss to edit, it's still fresh as it is. You can read it sometimes, and my boss is probably reading it like, what is this guy saying? But, I like that, and he gives me feedback. I get feedback from my work colleagues and that, so it's all learning. And I see this now as the hands-on practical thing that I wanted to do after uni. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm always thinking, like, when you start work, that's when you really learn. You can go through uni and do that. It's all practical. It's all theory. I think when it comes to university and then going into the workforce, it's like, okay, you got the job, but at least you know something about it. Now, this is where the real learning starts.
The real learning,
when you start
it's always the case. And it's not just for media. I talked to a couple of mates who do like trade. They do a trade. They say, man, it's different when you learn all of this, but they don't teach you how to handle like customers. They don't teach you how to like working on like a day where you're working with someone who doesn't know anything, or when you work with someone that thinks they know everything. So it's a lot of it is learning it, and that's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned through this whole job. And it's been something too that's like I've always sort of like looked at myself because I didn't know if I could be good enough, and then I'd be like, I sort of shy away from it. But now that I realize, I'm like, man, look, if you know what you're doing and you're happy with what you're doing and you know that you make mistakes and flaws, just keep on going. Don't worry about what other people think and just do what you want to do, and somehow you'll learn. And sometimes you'll fall in that, but that's all part of the learning process, I guess. So, yeah.
When you're going through uni and stuff, how many other survivors in your class? Or
in media itself, there was no one. There might have been, but it was, I would have just, those was all like white people, a lot Asians, Indians, so there's a mixture, but definitely no Pacific Islanders. And the issues we were discussing in these classes were like the world stuff, like stuff I didn't even know of. Like, to me, politics at that time was just friggin' Tula Ipa and HRPP, so it's like, we're talking about like Ronald Reagan and all these like presidents USA and like the moments of history where all this happened, and 9/11 and all that, like specific moments, how the media reacted to it. Initially, I wanted to quit straight away off the back. I said, what is going on?
Boring.
Yeah. Man, I was like, look, I did not come all this way. And at that time, too, I was like, man, I was tired of like sort of shortcutting stuff. So I was like, man, you've got to stick to it. So I kept on going to it. At that time, too, in terms of outside of uni, like my mates at uni, outside of classes, I can recall there's only like 2 of my mates who I'm still keeping contact with, and those are pretty much the poly boys that I'm hanging out with. Now it's like, as the years moved on, there's a massive growth now at uni in terms of just Polynesian Pacific students.
Why do you think that happened? Is it because it's needed, and if it is needed for more Pacific Island students, if they needed more Pacific Island students in media, and they weren't when you were there, and now there's a lot more, what changed? What was the thing?
I'm meeting like generally in uni, not media courses. I think there might be media courses now for like a lot of Pacific, but generally there was just no Pacific students at uni. And they say it now too, but it's like, nah, bro, you look at it now, there's a lot. And I put that down to
being in Christchurch.
I just put that line that, man, Pacific people are growing. There's a lot of Pacific Islanders. Samoans itself, there's a lot of Samoans. So you're expected to see a growth in numbers there too. Regardless of, everyone's saying, oh yeah, should they be there, should they not? But it's good to see that there's a lot of them there. And I guess it helps out other students too, seeing that there's other people of their sort of kind and same stories in it. But in media, I hope now that there's a lot. I really do hope a lot that there's a lot of them there. Or maybe they're more at the journalist school, because that's where it's at. So hopefully, I really do hope. And I feel like it's something that Pacific people should really go into, especially those going through the uni. It's a good course. It's a good pathway, It's not something not like law in that way. It's like you've got to really sort of dig deep into everything. Like media is something that you can be you in it, and it's how you interpret it and be what you know best, I guess, in a way.
I like that because I think being authentic in yourself, it's a good platform to be in when you're in media, because I guess it's reporting on stories that happen. But at the same time, you can do that, or you can also give your own perspective on those stories, your own opinion, and how you feel.
That's why people hate reporters. You look at like journalists now, people hate them. You bring up like, oh, that guy, he thinks he knows everything. And I'm not talking about Pacific. I'm talking about like the guys you see on TV, like they host shows. People hate them, but that's because if you look at how they came through, that's why they're immersed into media, because they're like, man, this is me. This is how I like to talk. And it is ugly at one point, but that's the non-Pacific side. But in Pacific, when you have Pacific people doing that, it's really cool, because it's like they're tapping into their strengths. And then they can also tap into like the outside world and add their own Pacific influence and how that sort of goes, which is what I try to do now in a way. Like I realize that I have strengths and I have weaknesses, but one of my strengths is there's like, which is a lot of the stories I connect into. It's I go to it and it reminds me of home. Like recently I had a shoot with the Samoan girl who plays for the Football Friends, and we went to her house and everything, and her grandma was there and her mum, and it literally reminded me of my grandparents at home in Christchurch. The pictures everywhere in the house, the graduation pictures everywhere and stuff, and you had like Jesus somewhere inside the house, and she started talking to you about stuff like all the throwback stories. And to me, that's my strength. I can connect immediately because I also speak fluent Samoan, so it's like straight away off the bat, that's me. That's a strength I knew, and that's an example of knowing how to immerse yourself into the story. So before the story even starts, you're there. You've got it. And when I came into reporting, I didn't realize that 80% of the work is before you even start the recording. That's just you like prepping it up, and because if you just jump in there and you're like, I hit record, there's not like an emotional thing you've created with someone.
So it's like building a relationship before.
That's where it's at. That is literally where it's at. And so that's been cool, I guess. But I guess it's because I'm working for Pacific media outlet, so it's, of course, Pacific people are real emotional people. So probably the next challenge for me now is like, well, can I do that now outside of a Pacific lens? Like, shout out to the Pacific people in TVNZ, TV3 News Hub, who are doing that. They are literally in a whole different lens, but they are doing their own, chipping away at it, doing their stories. So I guess those are the real heroes I sort of see too, where initially I want to be but for now it's like I want to create this with all Pacific people in a way. Yeah,
that's pretty cool, because I always hear stories, there's, and you see it on social media. I'm always thinking about mainstream media and how they perceive Pacific Islanders, especially the ones growing up here in New Zealand, and our stories and the way we tell our stories. Because I feel like there's a little bit of pushback in terms of getting our own stuff. Yeah. Like I think behind everything they see on TV, whether it's the Tucking Pacifica show or any other show that showcases Pacific Islanders on TV, like I still feel like at the back of my mind it's not really ours. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's there. Sort of like they want brown faces, but not brown voices. If you know what I mean.
Dude, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I've heard that term before, even in the States. You know, it's like it's like a diversity card. It's like paying the diversity thing.
It's you realize it too. Like somehow they do it, like the whole we just put a brown face there and then that's enough. Like,
that's enough.
They're not really
we've
going
ticked the box.
Just tick the box. The clear example was bloody Super Rugby promoting Fiji's game, and they put like Fiji Samoa, and they posted up a post, and it was like for Fiji versus Tonga, and I'm like, everyone started commenting like, bro, you had one job, like, you know, it's how do you not miss up other posts? And it comes to this post, and you're just like, you know, let's put up there. And so I read that, and I was like, it's an example of that, you know, they're just doing, they're not doing everything they can. They're just like, let's just post it. That's it. And then I think they still haven't corrected it. It's still up there, like Fiji versus Tonga. So it's like, but it's Fiji versus Samoa. So
I saw that.
Yeah. It's small things like that. Like it just, you know, you're like, man. So when you have now Pacific people in the media, it's like, but we're doing more now. But at the same time, you ask yourself too, it's like, but are we? Like as our own, like us, like we can say, we're now Pacific media, but are we doing our part? So there's a lot of figuring out, because in all honesty, the Pacific audience, man, you've got to be really like, you know, on point with them, because man, they can like drag you down and tell you straight what's up, you know. So I've realized that, and it's one of those things where it's like, mainstream media, blah blah blah. No, but are we telling our stories like how we should do as a Pacific person?
Well, when did you first feel that?
As in
like when you started working, or was this a discussion you had with your boss and people at TP Plus? Like what is the goal of TP Plus? Like, because they left TVNZ, they're not part of TVNZ anymore.
They left TVNZ.
So they're on their own independent.
Yeah, and again, this is from conversations we've had at work, and these guys, the bosses, a lot of the. Bear in mind, I'm just like joining in since last year, so it's like a lot of it is new to me, and I'm lucky enough that I joined now that we have so much freedom. We have our own channel and stuff. We have our own, and I guess that's the same story for a lot of these younger ones. But those who were starting in the business back then on the TVNZ and everything, I remember that they told us, I think it was when they were, what's the word when you like, they cut off jobs like that? Is it made redundant or something like that? Yeah.
Or laid off.
Yeah. So that was a lot, and they cut out all Pacific reporters, majority of them. And then
when was that?
Actually, I don't. Yeah. And then that's when they split off, and it was just fortunate enough that by then, I think they were already a strong group. So then that's when our three bosses came into play, and they pretty much started up Sunpics, which is now like it records the Trans Pacifica. Still go under TVNZ for the show they show it there, but everything now that's us. We do it inside our own workplace. And I think it's more what you asked about. When did I start sort of knowing about these things? Is when you get into the workforce, because you know you're now talking with people who've been doing this for ages. You know they've been doing it for like 5+ years, 10+ years. That have seen it all. And outside from it, like you already know, you do the whole channel. Man, we don't see enough brown people. But when you get in there, you're like talking with them. It's like, man, there's also issues as us brown people who are telling the stories that we need to fix on our own. So it's like, you know, these conversations I have with them who have been in the game for probably so long and have seen it all, I guess,
Because I love our people, and I love seeing stuff on TV. You know, and I love seeing our people on TV, man, and doing these things. Yeah. But then I see a video of Taika Waititi. I don't know if you've seen it, when he's talking about diversity in Hollywood. And that's gone viral, that little speech he had. And he talks about this kind of stuff in the Hollywood sense. Like, you know, why we need every single race in the TV program for. You know, it doesn't make sense. Just to tick the diversity box. You know, why do we need a Polynesian guy in this film when it doesn't make sense? There shouldn't be a Polynesian person in this film. We just put him in there just to, you know, thing. Like, and so it's not diversity. It's diversity if you give the Polynesians our own stories, our own we should be running our own stories, not going through the white man and coming back down and that sort of thing. You know?
And that's why it's important for like you say, representation, not just in sort of the reporters, because reporters, but also in the roles with like the people that run the show. And I guess that's the beauty of being in South West Figure, because man, everyone that's there, everyone's Pacific. And somehow we've all gotten through the same upbringing. We all share similar stuff. We all know and this is a lot of them talking, the New Zealand-born Pacific diaspora sort of chat that they have. And we all connect. So, yeah, he's right about that, and it's good seeing people like Taika being in those roles, because obviously now he can run it now and he can do his own thing. But I guess, it's sad seeing that. I guess, like, people just do something just because it's like, we'll just make sure that so that they feel like they're included in this. But I guess it's the reality. But people need to understand that it's changing and that there are more Pacific people there. There are more Pacific directors out there now. There are more Pacific record music producers / type thing. So it's like we're really getting out there. But at the same time too, we've got to realize too, it's like, well, yeah, we can be in these spaces, but are we doing it? Are we really doing it? We've promised so much about the white man telling our story, but now that we're here, now are we really doing it? So it's, we can step into these roles, cool. But now it's like, now we got to really do it now. The thing that we've been promising ourselves and been saying that other people have been doing it wrong, well then let's do it right then, I guess. So because at the same time, like Pacific as a collective, and I'm speaking on this on the fact of Samoans, man, we're good at bringing us up, and then we're good at bringing ourselves down. So it's like, they'll be like, yeah, man, we need people in these roles. And then when they do get into it, it's like, man, who is that guy? He thinks he's the man, So it's like, it's just, it's a lot to take in. But I think first step is acknowledging that we have to have our people there. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's that the gatekeeping personality that comes in when you get a little power. And
it's, man, I hate...
Some people get a little power, they're like, okay, I'm the gatekeeper now.
I don't know. I hate saying it's a mentality thing for PI. Again, this is me on the Samoan. I guess I don't know what it is. It's just a thing with Islanders, man. Like, especially, I'm this guy now, and it's like, bro,
it's me and my friends talk about it all the time, man, and it's funny to us. And it's like, I think it's for us. It's like, okay, that stuff happens. Just gotta try to get over it somehow.
And then you know who like to manipulate on that? White people. They see that, and then they go, all you see is a story they're reporting on outside, one's just arguing back and forth, on who's the power. And I'm like, that's what they want, you know what I mean? But it just all goes to the fact that, but I guess it's just, I don't know. I really don't know either. It's crazy, man.
I know one thing that's good about having brown reporters, brown journalists, especially with our sports people. Because if you get guys that are in the spotlight, like Adi Severe, for instance, and he's a guy that's outspoken about the New Zealand media. He's been outspoken. It's caused him to start his own podcast and talk to the players his way. And to have a brown, like an Islander, come up to him as a reporter, and it must be really comfortable for him to pick, like, in the crowd.
It's good you mentioned that, and it's also good that you brought up Adi, because last year, the first...
Did you talk to him? Have you talked to him?
Yeah. The first, I say would have been... There've been a lot of big stuff, man. The stuff I've been to at this for the job, just the people I've seen, people see on TV, it's crazy. But last year we went to the All Blacks training when they had at Kerikeri. So this was them getting ready for the Island Test match, in which, man, that was a crazy one. The Island Test matches, and then obviously the normal Bledis load and everything, the rugby championship. And then because they do the thing where they go out to like the outside, like a lot of areas in New Zealand that don't see All Blacks, they do those trainings like the outside or stuff. And then they went out Kerikeri, so we went out there. It was like a 5 a.m. morning shift for us, and I was happy, man. I was like, man, this is the All Blacks, And then we got there, and we just like shooted some stuff and like recorded interviews and that. But I was only tagging along. Our senior reporter did the story, but I was just tagging along because she was like, man, because she knew I was like a big sports fan. So I just went along, and we're like right there in their training, and I was just standing there watching them train. Like, this is a world class team, and it was crazy, like just seeing them run through their things. But it was also crazy seeing like Adi, Rico, Richie, and afterwards they did the interviews and the players were signing. But that was when Roger Tuivasa-Sheck made the team, so he was the big talk. So he was doing the interview, and Adi came round to, and I was like, oh, hey bro, can we take a photo? Took a photo, and then he goes to me, oh, like, who are you for? Like, who are you working for? And I was like, oh, Transfer Fico. He's like, man, it's good seeing people like here from our own people. It's good seeing you guys here. And then Roger came through too, and he said the same thing. He's like, host, but like, I was like, yo, and it's like, dapping me up. I was like, oh, yo, that's me. He's like, nah, it's good. And you can tell that they feel more comfortable to do that kind of like, dapping you up and stuff like, and just talking to you normally, because they're like, you can't really do this in terms of like chatting normal with other people. But yeah, it was buzzy seeing that. And now it's like, it made me realize that, man, these people, like our Pacific Stars, they would really love to see more of us. So that's why, like, I know for like these rugby games and stuff, like a lot of it is just a lot of Palangi guys that sit in the media box. But I will literally go to it because I want to be there, and I want them to see that there's someone here that's from us, Whether they see it or not, that's up to them. But having Adi say that, it was cool, because I was like, oh, okay, they're realizing that, they're recognizing that, and that's the go, And his other work that he's done with his own stuff, I mean, Adi's just that guy now. He's well respected throughout the team, whether you're Polynesian or not. And you read through like comments of like Palangi people, man, they respect him to the point where it's like he's that guy. So yeah, but that's a story about Adi and that, and how that was cool seeing that. So yeah,
I can't think of any Pacific Islander reporter that's in the mainstream a lot, that's in the sports or even anywhere else. Like, only guy that comes to mind is Mills Moriaina on the breakdown.
He's on Sky, commentating,
and he's out the field too when they're on the podium. He's on there sometimes. He's interviewing the players and that. But other than Mills, there's no one else there. Like, there's only
surely Sky send me to the World Cup.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Like, see, when I watch all these sports shows on Sky, they're all ex-players.
Yeah.
And I get it. Yeah. They got inside of the game. They used to play, and they know what they're talking about.
Yep.
But when you see shows in Australia like in NRL 360, you got players and you got journalists, because you need that perspective. I think you need a journalist kind of perspective that ex-athlete doesn't have a perspective on.
Yeah.
Like,
you're talking about buzzing that.
Yeah. I know it sounds weird, but New Zealand doesn't really have that sort of thing. They have the host maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of different.
I know. I think it's just probably because it's different in NRL and rugby, I guess. Because
but then it's all different, because the sports culture in Australia is different to our sports culture, because they're real transparent. There's dramas all the time, and they like the dramas because the drama brings all the attention. Yeah, and it brings the fans to get more invested in the teams when drama happens. Yeah. So I think it's part of the whole plan. Yeah. For the media to get into stuff like that. Yeah. Whether the players hate it. Yeah. Because it's about them and it's about their personal stuff and what goes on. Yeah. And the fans might hate it too, because, you're talking about my team, talking about my player. But in the long run, it helps the sports culture. Yeah. The bottom line. Yeah. Because I think the fans are getting into it more. And New Zealand's good at. New Zealand doesn't have that, because when you think about the All Blacks, they're not NZR. Yeah. They're not transparent. Yeah. Hey, they close the curtains on a lot of things. So you can't really get inside unless they let you in. Yeah. And I think because the deal between NZR and Sky is a big part of that. Because although Sky TV has the monopoly, because there's no more Spark Sport anymore, in broadcasting sports in New Zealand, and All Blacks contract with them is the only thing. Like, it makes sense that New Zealand Rugby says, okay, this is what we give you to report on, nothing else.
I think that over the years that was always been the case for them. Nowadays it's because I get a lot of emails from them that man, come through to this. So I feel like they're sort of realizing that this is the go now, that you're going to be more, I guess, not out there and open, but that there's a different way of how we can approach it. And then it helps too when you have players have their own social media and they're doing their own thing too. So it's like we're sort of getting an access into there. There's also, and like we're speaking about representation, Matt Manukia, who was a sports reporter on TVNZ, he's now sort of leading the media team now for them, All Blacks. You also got 2 Pacific boys there that are doing the content now. They're shooting everything and uploading it online. And it's a surprise to everyone because I think you're right about that. Though All Blacks keeping New Zealand rugby keeps themselves. So I guess for now, I'm really grateful that they are opening up their doors for me and I get to go through to this stuff. But I mean, I'm not surprised if that was the case coming through over the years. Because I have heard of people saying that, All Blacks really keep themselves. It's a sort of thing that just like at that level, they're like, yeah, that's them. But I do really hope now that, especially now, with everything going on, it's got to be more open, I guess. But it really helps with the players, yeah. And like Adi and that, I think Rico, the recent World Cup, he did like a vlog going around inside and stuff, showing the players. And that's when people realize, like, man, these people are they're normal, it's just think they're sports stars and everything. But I think for the shows, like what you mentioned, it's good to always have like someone to sort of lead the show. That's that journalist side. But I think for the sports stars like Mills and that, because I feel like John Kerwin, because he's always on the breakdown, and Jeff Wilson, I feel like they've got that.
They're starting to come out a bit.
The journal side now,
yeah,
which maybe that's why they can lead it. But I wouldn't know of someone like a sports guy that would run it, I guess. But yeah, Jeff Wilson and what's his name, Kerwin, they loved that whole some of the stuff they're saying, like, shut up.
yeah.
But like, it's cool,
yeah. Because man, I'm always thinking about. I remember what Adi said in one of his podcasts. He talked about when the All Blacks went to America to play. Who did they play? They went to Washington D.C. On the Redskins.
They had that one off.
They're not Redskins anymore.
Was it like an exhibition match?
Yeah, with some.
Oh, they changed the name.
With USA.
Yeah.
They played USA.
They changed the name of the Redskins team.
To Commanders. They changed to Commanders.
Yeah.
They played in their stadium, and Adi Sphere spoke about the event, the game, and the vibe before the game and after. Like it was a real party atmosphere. Like they had the tailgating, and all that kind of stuff, and they had food trucks and
everything,
drinks, and
it's a culture. It's a culture there.
It's culture there. We think of American sports culture, man, blow your mind. Some of the things that you see over there when it comes to sports.
The hype there is real, man.
Yeah, it's real. And he spoke about his experience, and he was saying, man, how come New Zealand can't do this? Why can't we have these kind of? Why can't every game should be an event?
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about rugby is dying,
I
think part of the reason why it's dying because it's there's nothing for fans to enjoy. Like there's the game, and there's we go to the game, watch the game, we win, we lose.
That's it.
Yeah. There's no. So what's next?
I guess I can't speak on that because it's like I grew up in Samoa, so I wouldn't really know it here. But when you hear people talk about it, it's like, man, I guess that's what it's been like. I guess the whole, create a hype about it. I don't know. But has it always been something like that, or is it?
I think it has been always like that. And I think we never had a problem with that for a long time because Super Rugby was good. Auckland Blues were good back in the days. Auckland Rugby was good. Crusaders always good. All Blacks always good. So and South Africa was playing Super Rugby, so competition was good. So I think we didn't need to have extra things because it was good anyway. But now something needs to be done about.
Nah, it's when the All Blacks started losing, I guess. When the All Blacks started losing, then they're like
because of Foster, eh?
No,
because of Foster.
Ah man, yeah. Word.
Or his tenure, but But what I'm trying to talk about is the sports culture in New Zealand compared to America or Australia, because I think Australia have it right. Australia copies of America in some ways. With how their media acts.
And because Australia has also they're not just rugby. They're rugby's like the third or fourth sport. They have AFL. Man, I've got a mate now. I've sort of gotten to know him. He's through like the rugby stuff we cover. He's in Oz at the moment, and I saw in his story like the AFL that he's watching before they're going tonight to cover the Bledisloe. And man, it's just crazy seeing that, and it's seeing all the fans get behind and just the numbers that are there. Yeah, so I guess culture. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's a New Zealand thing I wouldn't know of just how everyone's like, let's do a culture, and then let's not do that. Maybe I guess. Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Stay Rogen.
Yeah.
See how hype Stay Rogen is in here in New Zealand?
Yeah.
With especially the Pacific Islanders.
But that's us hyping and it's over there.
Exactly. But see that energy. Feel that energy when State Origin comes around here.
Yeah.
Especially with Pacific Islanders, you know, you choose a team.
Yeah.
And we go hunting for our team, New South Wales or Queensland.
Yeah.
We're not even from there, you know, but...
Are you New South?
New South. Are you Queensland or New South?
No, New South.
Okay, cool. But, you know, see, where's that same energy in anything else?
Yeah, true.
You know, I know the All Blacks have that same energy every time, but this is just All Blacks when All Blacks play.
Yeah.
But even Super Rugby, like... I can imagine everyone in Christchurch, like, energy's there for Crusaders.
Yeah, it's but I guess it's not like at that point where you're like seeing like the like overseas type energy. But everyone, the Crusaders, everyone gets behind them. You know, it's the team. But I think what you're trying to win.
That's when you win, eh?
Yeah. I guess, but you're talking about like having the culture regardless of the hype and it. It's it also helps too if you are really good with social media. I think the Blues did that good on their social media team, man. It was like they would hype up stuff and the posts and everything you'd see, and it's cool.
Do you know that guy? The social media guy for Blues?
I've only met him once, but this was like I just saw him like and stuff. But they seem like they're cool, man. I know the guy that I talked to for the media stuff. He books in everything, but he's not the guy that's been doing the accounts. The guys that do the accounts, they're younger. They crack up of the stuff they come up with. But like that kind of stuff, you know, like it's sort of leading into that, like creating the hype and stuff. And like I said about those Samoa boys that are doing the All Black stuff right now, people comment on it, they're like, man, this is the type of stuff we wanted to see, you know? So it's like...
I haven't noticed. So what did they do?
Oh, if you watch their content now, it's real more out there, like training day, getting ready for it, pumped up, and like. But these are two like Auckland Samoa boys, and they do videography stuff.
Like on the All Blacks page.
Yeah, on the Instagram.
Oh,
they're like it's like in normal videos like hyping it up, but it's more like it's way more better. Like it's just see it, and you're like, man, this is cool, you know, and then you want to see this kind of stuff. So maybe that's a big help if we want to create this hype, because everyone's online, everyone beefs online. So when you have stuff like that and sharing it, people are sharing it and start talking crap about it, and then the hype is it.
I know the object of a sports journalist is to get the stories.
Yeah.
And give it to the public.
Yeah.
But, I think with sports dying and there's need for what I'm explaining, the culture side of it to come up. How is it can journalists be responsible for trying to make it better, try to make the hype better as well? I know they got to report the stories, but to save rugby, for instance, it's like,
Yeah. I guess it's to an extent they can do it. It depends too on who you're reporting for and where you're reporting to. You're right about that. We media also have a big role to play in that too. Whether it's some kind of written you write up and it's like fans will read it and be like, hey, what the hell? That's a wild opinion, and people are sharing it. But it's not into big effect, I guess. But they do have a role. They do have a role in sort of putting that out.
Because when I see these roles played by the media, I have to look into American sports. Because they do it, man.
Because you have those talk shows,
They go overboard.
Yeah.
It's sort of like they're a different character sometimes, you know. And these are personalities.
Yeah. Because you have like sports stars personalities, and then you have your media personalities.
Yeah. And like to build a media personality, you gotta be into character, eh?
Yeah.
It's kind of something.
Yeah, and I guess the other big thing too that people worry about is once we start doing that culture thing, it's like, oh man, you guys are copying America, you guys are copying here. So I don't know, but
I get the American stuff because ESPN, that's entertainment, sports entertainment. So you got to entertain to get people.
Everything
to be into
in sports in America is entertainment. They love the entertainment side of it. You know, they're selling it before the game even starts. So.
Yeah,
but you're right about that.
But do we need it? We need a hero. I think we do.
I think we need someone that comes out and does like big sort of thing like that. Say for instance, I don't know. Do you follow Bloke in a Bar?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and like he's a former player, but man, the content he does, it's like crazy, you know, and it reflects on the fans too. Like, you know, the fans get behind it. His merch and everything. It'll be like he like give nicknames to players and stuff, and it sticks with them. So like that kind of stuff, I guess we need here in New Zealand, I guess. But when I said I didn't grow up here, I didn't even realize when I moved here. I didn't even realize the whole tall poppy syndrome thing until I spoke to like people from here. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just a myth sort of thing. But then I realized it's like, yeah, it is quite true, you know?
So what's your experience with tall poppy syndrome?
Depends. Like, have you had that? Or
I think for me, tall poppy syndrome is in my head.
Yeah.
Like, it affects my head.
Yeah.
I remember when we first started doing the podcast, I'm always worried about what people think.
Yeah.
And that stopped me from doing a lot of stuff in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, shit, what they think I'm stupid. What they think they think like I'm a radio guy. You know, all of a sudden, you know, I'll stop. I won't do stuff. I'll be holding back. But that's the whole. That's what the fake poppy syndrome does, eh?
Oh, yeah,
it's something that's invisible. You think it, but it's not really there. Like to me now, like who cares?
Yeah.
No one cares. Everyone's got a problem. Yeah. So why do they? No one cares.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm just worried about my dad's opinion. To be honest, that's pretty much it, I guess. But man, it was moving to NZ was that's where I sort of saw a lot of things that happen here. But at first I was like, man, it's just weak, you know, you guys are just, you know. But then I realized too, like, you're talking a lot to the islanders here, and sort of the generation, like, the younger generation, they're like, nah, bro, it's actually serious, you know. And yeah, I think that's where I sort of realized that.
It's not in Samoa. They don't have that, do they?
Because we're all Samoans, so it's like,
right.
Yeah, everyone talks shit about everyone, but it's like, we're all Samoans. It's like, you know, just it's all of like, we're all there. And obviously you have your scraps and everything, but I guess in here, because it's like, it's not just Samoans here in New Zealand, there's everyone else here. So it's like, people talk down about people, but it's different now. There's more of a bit of a kick to it, because it's like, they're looking at the race. It's this particular people, these particular people that do it. So oh man. Yeah.
You know, I remember when you were talking about at school when you had classes on 9/11 and you thought, oh no, what the hell is this kind of thing?
Yeah.
And when you think of that class and what you were taught, how do you look back in that and say, oh, that's why they taught us? How did that all relate to what you know now, and how did that help?
What I liked about stuff we did at media in UC was, in all honesty, it was more so, media was like a course you wouldn't even have to like do anything. You just show up on the day, and it's just imagine like a bunch of all these people, and then just like, I think. So we'll just bring up a topic. Sometimes it's some of the biologis I'd go to uni with, bro. I'd be listening to them ramble, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense at all. But that made me think. I'm like, man, that's what it's all about, you know. So I guess things that I got taught from there was how to believe in yourself. What you say. A lot of the biologis that I talk to, man, it's crazy what they tell you, and you're listening, but they're really strong on their opinion, you know. I guess for me it was, I knew my opinions, but I didn't really want to say it out, because I was like, I don't want to. But then when I started hanging around these people, and they're like, well, maybe this guy was racist, you know, just like blatantly saying, nah, but you're wrong, like, you know, stuff like that. And I was like, man, I have to be there. So that was one of the things I picked up. The second thing was always, see your opinion, but always know that there's another person out there and then you know how to sort of take that and use it onto how you move on. Because to me, it was like when I saw someone say something, I was like, man, you're dumb, straight away. But then I was like, when I hear that, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And then learning how to have a debate sort of thing, because the issues that they would bring up, they would be like, stuff like that, 9/11. Be like, this is how the media reacted. Now, bang, let's talk about it. And then like we'll just be in lecture, and everyone's like started throwing ideas. There's always the bots in the class, like in the front. But everyone's like, man, he's bots. But then I realized, like, man, this guy is really strong when he says. And then there'll be like honest, conversations going on, and then we finish class. So I was like, that's what I took out of that, you know?
Right.
And now that I've come into this now, it's like, oh yeah, I'm Pacific. But then it's like, but I'll hear out someone else's opinion that what they think, because we're Pacific, we connect, but you know, we all have different stories and sort of thing. So I guess that's something that I've learned from it.
That's a cool class, because
when I think it was crazy, man. Sometimes like, oh bro, it'll be crazy the stuff they say. It just doesn't make sense sometimes. I'm just sitting there. And the other thing too I learned big from it was being comfortable around people you're highly around. Because I would always, I'm always around my mates and people like Samoans and that family. When I went into these classes, I sort of immediately like shouted, and I was like, man, these guys don't care about me. But I sort of realized, man, like, you've got to just believe yourself, what you say. But just being there too. Because if I was to give in and not start going classes, then immediately they're like, he's already failed, dropped out. So I was like, man, I got to keep on going. And just being present, I guess, in there. So it's like now when I sort of go to stuff, like some of the stuff I go to, especially like game day, media X's, there is no Pacific people as in terms of the reporters. And I go there and you have like everyone from, Palangi people. We had the All Blacks game recently in Mount Smart. There was a different mix of people. There was Argentinian reporters, Irish reporters, there's all these English reporters, and it's like international. And here's me trying to fit in.
Yeah.
But I realized, I'm like, hey man, I did this at uni. It's a bigger scale now, but I can do this more, And then you get to realize that, man, people, sometimes it's like you said, it's just in your head. When you talk to these people, and they love Z because they're like, oh, yeah. Like, yeah. And I talked to the Irish guy, so I talked about Bundy Aki. And man, he was like, yeah, man, Bundy Aki, he's like a legend in Ireland. Like, goes to any pub and anyone will show him. So, like, stuff like that, I guess, I'm grateful for that experience at uni. In which, at first, I was going to do the whole, man, this class is racist, But it's just because I was creating that in my head. But I was like, nah, I actually got to know that, people think different, Just because this is how you perceive the world, it can't be the way that they perceive it. So that's been a lot of what I've learned here now, sort of in the role. So I always make sure that I don't take anything personal from what I cover. And if I do see something that someone has said and that doesn't align with me, don't tackle them or challenge them down. Like, be like, oh, well, maybe we can do this. And then sort of meet them at a way. And then that goes to not just with media, that just goes with generally in life, Like, don't be shut down by something that you don't like or dislike. Like, nah, try to figure out how you can sort of talk to them. Maybe you guys will never find a solution, but at least you try, and at least you're getting there in some way, I guess. Yeah.
I love that class because it sort of teaches you how to have an open mind.
Yeah. Oh, it was like about 3 classes because it'd be one lecture. He would do like one or 2 classes, but the names of the class would be like media in the world. Like, how broad is that? Like, this is the course I'm going to, media in the world, and it'll be like racism with media. And in that course, we'll talk about like dealing with grief, stories like that. Say, for instance, if you cover like a story that has someone that's passed away, because that's a different whole game, Like, you're not going in like, hey man, like, you're going in now, you're covering people that's full of emotional, like, loss. And in the videos they would show us, it'd be like the Rwanda, like something like that, on the African. See, this is me not even listening in class, but they'll talk about like wars, like, when media covered wars, the influence of media they had on wars, and people that were watching back home, and America, and how people see like the troops, the army, and people watch it, and how the media portrayed like, man, these troops, they're the man, But realistically, when you go out and look at what they were doing, it wasn't, as patriotic as it seemed. So we covered stuff like that, the importance of having you on field, media, how you can influence narrative and how you can change the narrative into making people realize that, no, this is what it is. So, yeah, I think things like that, when you come to like a scale like Pacific people who believe everything that they see and they hear. So it's like, yeah, we can do that. And the narrative, that's it. But yeah, man, those classes are wild, man. And then obviously they'll give like a topic for like, because the exams you would have, it would be like 3 essays and then you just write. Honestly, you just write anything. Honestly, you're just like, well, this is my opinion. Like, And then, yeah, sort of got into that. And then, yeah, I've realized that, if you have an opinion, don't be scared of it. But at the same time, like, bro, like, do some research, bro. Like, don't be out here like saying, yeah, this is it. But actually know what you're talking about and backing it up. So, yeah.
I always love the art of conversation and when it brings up problems that you have to solve. And I think when conversations happen, it's about solving that problem. And it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about who can solve that problem the best. What's the best way of solving that problem? And someone might have an idea, and then someone might have a better idea. And then it's like, okay, how can we come to a compromise on how to make it better?
So when I initially jumped on media, I always thought that the reason my strength was this, in terms of culture, Samoan culture-wise, man, we are orators. You go to a funeral, you go to anything. I mean, look at the culture itself, the ifunga. They can do something so bad, but the exchange of words and you hear the high chief talking and the action they do, it soothes out everything, which is quite funny for a culture that everyone like wants to attack everyone. But you can have just this guy just come out and be like, massive orator, poetry sort of style, and then already like, man, we forgive you. You know, this is us. And you look at funerals when the families, like, you know, they sort of stand opposite and they like exchange words. That's where I feel like our people should be going for media, because naturally we love the chat. And stepping out from that cultural chat into like just generally chat, or islanders that I drink with and stuff, man, the craziest yarns, you know. And you always have someone in the conversation group that, man, most people pillow yarns out. But it's just, you know, that's just their thing. So it's like, we love to conversate. It's our thing. And sometimes we try to tell them to shut up, but it's our thing, you know. Islanders really love that. So I guess.
So how can you harness that into,
so it's like,
into what you're doing?
Yeah,
like,
so, well, then that is up to you then. Because if you feel like that's something you want to do for a living, then that's up to you. You're like, okay, now, what are my weaknesses? So it'd be the first one, be like, well, yeah, I like to talk, but I don't like listening to other people. So, oh, well, bro, you got to start listening now, because that's all part of it. It'd be small stuff like for me, it was when I would, now because I present, but I had struggles of actually being like a public off the head sort of thing, like, yeah, bang, straight away, and not saying like like that, or swearing, or like just out of the second word be like, yeah, or just talking casually, like on the spot. So you'd be like, oh yeah, that's me. So that's what I realized. I like to chat, right? But it's like, okay, now how do I put it in that perspective in a way? But yeah, man, Samoans in general, man, really good people they are, man. It's like, yeah, any drink up you go, it's always cool, because like, there's always that one guy's like, nah, you know, like, you know, always crack up. There's always a joke going around. But it's like, yeah, we got to realize, man, that can be like something we can use.
Yeah. You might be the person to bring that over and teach others to use, or to remind people that, you know, we come from a long line of artists back home, man. Like, that's our thing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you look at it. Samoans they literally have the word was it whekakala? You talk too much, like, and it's, you know, we love to talk. You know, it's a thing. It's a natural thing for us. So it's like, yeah, I guess that's where I saw it, and I was like, man, maybe I can sort of dip into that and sort of use that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess,
bring back your poetry.
You know, it was a funny story about that poetry. There was one point, man, I was just actually not liking science. I was enjoying it, but so like as a punishment, instead of my dad giving me a hiding, thank God for that, he was like, you know what, you're gonna start writing poems to Samoa Observer, because there was a poetry corner, and I started out of anger, but then I started thinking, bro, this was mean, and then it somehow stopped. But I still think if you search it up, they're still there. But it used to come on the paper and stuff. It was crack up, and I remember one of my friends seeing it in Samoa. He's like, "Hey, is this you?" Because I was dumb enough to send in my photo too. Because you can write your poems but have no photo. But I was the only idiot that sent the photo, and then and they're like, oh, I was like, oh. But yeah, that was good. Yeah.
You know when you're in that did they call it a press conference? Media room.
Media room. Yeah.
You know, that's. Because I see that all the time when I watch the NBA, you know, that when you see the press conference afterwards, and reporters have their turns like trying to say something to get attention and ask their question. Yeah. That's you, doing that. Yeah. And when you got a Pacific Islander on the front, are they surveil or someone, and they see a brown face, they're going to pick you like, sometimes their face change? Like,
sometimes it depends, because there's a lot of things that people don't see. So first off, bro, the game's just finished. So here we are, eager media people like, yo, got my questions. But these are players, you know, you're judging by how they're feeling. They're lost, or they're like, they've won the game. So this is like a big emotional jump for them.
So they have two lists of questions, they lost questions and they won questions.
Again, it's it's one of those sort of things. But the question part of it is, a lot of it you just figure it out on because you watch the game too and you realize, okay, specifically that's what I want. But bear in mind, there's about 8 of us still, 10. So it's like, someone else can have your question. At first I thought there was someone that stood there and pointed out who wants to speak. At the All Blacks game, bro, you just jump in straight away. You know who's going to start, though. It's always the big guys that start. Yeah, I don't know where they always start. Come on, man, give us a spot. But
so can you just push them and just say?
Bro, it's all up to you. They call it like there's a media scrum. They call it like that. And it's like, you got one shot. And it's I guess for the press conference, that's why a lot of people avoid it, like for us that aren't as big. Because when I go to the media stuff on the game day, I don't take a camera. This is me recording on my phone. So sometimes just nip off from whatever they're saying. But when you're going for camera, bro, you've got to make sure you ask a question, because if they're answering the question and it's here, your camera, the eye line, if you're going to use your story, it's going to look like he's not sort of trying to face your camera. So you've got to like make sure that, I've got my questions nailed down. But yeah, they start like that. I think NBA, they do that divvying out guy because it's
they point,
because it's big. Yeah. So, and I realized that the FIFA one I went to, that was crazy because I was used to the New Zealand rugby that when you get the media pass, you're allowed anywhere. But I got there, they're like, oh no, bro, you got to apply for a media ticket to go to the press conference and the interviews downstairs. Your pass just gets you in here in the lounge. That's it.
Oh.
I was like, oh wow. But then I realized because it's a world thing, it's a global. And these are the big guns, you know. It's not just New Zealand there. There's like Korea, Asian reporters, from Africa reporters, all around the world. But the FIFA one too, they pick too. There's a guy there and they'll be like, oh yeah, start from you. And then you get to go.
The FIFA one's powerful because they're in Australia as well. They're playing in Australia too.
Yeah, it's co-hosting it.
So I think Suncorp, they weren't allowed to use Suncorp.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's like it's the FIFA World Cup, so you can't have Suncorp anywhere in the because they've got their own sponsors. It's like the Rugby World Cup, You can't use any other sponsors.
Well, FIFA's on a whole nother level. I gotta say, after going to the FIFA thing, I'm really grateful for New Zealand rugby and rugby itself. It's real straightforward. Get your pass, that's it. In terms of using footage, they're real clarifying on what you can use and what you cannot use. But if you have your own camera, then that's it. Like you can shoot training in there. For FIFA, man, that was crazy. It's like game day rights, unless your rights holding pass, that something like that, then you can use the footage. But even like if you try to like just snip like 2 seconds, like come on. But they pick it up and they like sort of know what to do. So yeah, but I understand why FIFA's like that. You know, you compare FIFA to just rugby here in New Zealand. It's big. It's a big stage. But yeah, with the whole
security is a big.
Yeah,
big
yeah. It's well, that whole thing about having a pass and it can't guarantee you have to get a ticket. But luckily there were other people there because people that are there, they're in teams. So like there'll be a whole team there, like 8 of them. There's 3 guys, the photographers, 2 guys that are doing the editing. So they're all transferring to them. And then there's the 2 guys who go with the actual reporters. So luckily there were guys there. Because can you imagine if it was just me sitting in the lounge and everyone went to the press conference like an idiot? Like, oh, that guy didn't get his tickets. You know what I mean? But it was a learning that like that. That was a moment of learning for me. Okay, I'll apply for tickets next time. And but yeah, just going back to that question, the press conference thing, where it's crazy. I remember we first had the Moana Pacifica, their first training. And this is me going, and I was like, surely they'll start with me. But this was my first ever media scrum. This is the first time I'm going to this. So I walked up, and there was a person there that sort of divvied out. And, you know, I'm like, Moana Pacifica, come on, bro. Like, this is an island. Anyways, I had a camera. I had someone with a camera there, too. So I was like, man, we got to get our questions. And our producer just pripped me quick as he was like, bro, you got to get them, ask you questions. Someone asks you questions on the spot, try to think of how to turn it around. But if you know the angle that you're going to, in which I'm always fortunate for that because as a Pacific media, we always have a different angle. And the angle is like, everyone's asking about rugby, technical issues, like, what are your ones? You just ask the question like, man, how's your family, man? How's the support been? And immediately see they open up. So that's always been my angle that I always look at. I want to get, because I can trust on that. But I like you guys are asking like, you know, like line outs or a bit of work on, you know. So, anyways, we started a thing and like, oh yeah, you start. I think One News they started, and then TV3 went on, News Hub. So here was me thinking, because I'm also shooting, I'm gonna be the next guy. I was about to pop in, and then the radio guys like jumped in because they with their phones. They like jumped in the radio guy, and I was like, oh, look at this guy. So I was like, that's when I realized, I was like, man, you've got to push in. So the second radio guy's about to go and say, oh yeah, hey, Neueli Mauafu. I just jumped in straight away. Yeah. And it was with Sekopi Kepu.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's when they announced he was captain too. And then I just fired him my questions, and then afterwards I was like, man, this is what it is. You know, you can't really be like sort of shying away from it. Mm. And then I've talked to people like at work, and they're like, yeah, that's why a lot of people try to avoid those. You always try to schedule one-on-one because it's cool. It's like one-on-one is just you and that person. But when you have stuff like that, then yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, because I think it's the whole competition to get the question out and answer.
Yeah, because you're getting that, and then straight away you come back and you write it, and then that's all everything like became a learning. So I was like, okay, you've got to find out your angle. Obviously, all these people are going to be doing the same story, so you've got to make sure how you put it out is there. Like that's it.
Right. This is the perspective we're talking about. Like TP Plus. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously everyone's gonna shit on this player. So for Roger's case, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, we went to when he announced that he was gonna go back to league, and then we went to it and had the cameras there, everyone. In my head, I knew straight away that because that had been 24 hours since he announced it on social media, but now this is the first time he's facing media. I'd already known and seen where people were coming from on the angle that they were going to go. Mixed emotions of, oh yeah, bust of talent, waste of time, and yeah, welcome back to the Wires. Yeah, goodbye, you were useless. And I was like, I'm going to ask about him and how his family's been helping him out support. Threw in the question, no one had asked that, and I was like, man, how's it been? With family. He's like, yeah, it's been good. And you can hear him like sort of sound like he was really emotional about it, like, because it's just been a day, and here he was fronting media, like, and then I was like, oh, that's cool, man. And like, can you speak more about that? Now, the question I wanted to ask him on the dot was, I know it's just early days, but would you ever don the Tosa Samoa jersey? But I somehow didn't ask that. I don't know why. And then I came back to work to edit up the story, and then I look at bloody news. It was a news about someone. They've written the comments from my questions about he spoke about his family, and I was like, geez, look at these guys. But like, it's stuff like that. You've got to find out your angle, and then somehow they maneuvered their angle from like he's leaving, but hey, his family's been real supportive of him. So then I was like, family. I forgot the title I put, but I said, family like a big motivator for him, because he mentioned that he said he didn't want to go overseas because he also talked about how other league clubs are offering him contracts, but he wanted to keep it here in Auckland and stay with his family. And then I think last week I saw he was on that morning shift, and they asked him that Tosa Samoa jersey, and then he said, oh yeah, and then that blew up too. I was like, damn man, I should have asked that.
Oh yeah, I think I saw a reel come up.
Yeah,
because they asked the question.
Yeah.
So, but you already had that question ages ago.
Yeah, but like it's things like that. That's where I figured out, like, you've got to be real, like knowing what you're going in with, and you've got to sort of pre-prepare what you're gonna say in the article. So like, can you imagine if I came out with the written like Tosa more potential for Roger, and then just add into that and add onto his family? But that's where you got to fight for it. And I know that now that touches onto the whole clickbait thing, because man, reporters love that, and a lot of the Palangis are mainstream. They love that, It's, and you read the title and you read the whole article. There's only like 1% of the article that says that title, but then he's writing his whole story regardless. But he just wants to catch you on that title, sort of thing. Yeah. But it's been a lot of learning, I guess. Roger's a good sport, man. Like, we finished the interview and I came outside and he was about to leave. He's like, oh yeah, sapos.
I remember you from the training room.
Yeah. But yeah, he's cool, man. It's cool. So stuff like that, yeah.
It's interesting how News Hub took the words from
sorry, it's the News Hub. I don't know who it was, but I read it and they used it. In which it's like,
but when things like that happen, I think for me, if I was in your shoes, I would be thinking two things. Yeah. I'll be like, man, those assholes. Or number two, wow, they took my stuff. And
so to me, it was like,
I'm important. My words were important. But then what comes to mind next is, okay, how do we stop that from happening? How do we take advantage of that, or try and avoid that from happening and use that to our advantage with our angle? Not let anyone like take our angle away from us and do that. Because when I think about our lane as Pacific Islanders having our own media platform, it's only for us. I feel, like I'm not seeing Palangis watching our stuff. It's only us watching our own stuff. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And if you were to interview RTS not in that space in the media scrum, but in private, and you answer that question and you get those answers, and then you come back to your platform and do the story, you're only talking to us. Yeah. Because I don't think the Palangis are looking at our stuff. Yeah. So it doesn't even get out as much. Yeah.
It's I think for the first bit that you asked about how do we stop that, I guess it's never going to stop. I guess people will always nitpick on what makes sense. If the mainstream media know that, man, the emotional story, it look nice if we put it out too. They'll grab that. So it will never stop. But it's one of those that you've got to make sure that, put it out to those Pacific athletes that we're here. And then sort of create that relationship where it gets to the point where they come through to you to do their story. So that's what I'm trying to do. Like
on the long run, it's the long run.
Like bro, trust us here that there's people of us of our own that can be here to tell your story, because I relate to you in a way that I know what's going on. Like when Roger started talking about his family, that was buzzy. It's like you just instantly feel like, man, this guy is like getting bombarded from like different reactions on people. And I think he mentioned that on the morning shift. He talked about how he's used to it, but he's worried about his family, how they cope with the whole online thing. Like, if someone comes up to him and tells him he's shit, he's accepting it. But someone can't go up to his dad at work and be like, bro, your son's shit. So, like those kind of stuff. So, how I would sort of change it is making sure that I make sure that these players or athletes, or not just athletes, our own Pacific people who are in the spotlight, know that there are people that they can come to tell their story. It will take a while, but I know that if I can sort of start something, as how our other older reporters have started the journey for us. Because, man, where we're at right now, as much as I say it's hard, can you imagine how hard it was for those that started it when there was no Tangata Pacifica, when there was no Coconut, when there was no, all these other Pacific media outlets? So it's like, I'm grateful for now, but I'm looking forward for the future so that whoever comes through next, like other people, other younger, eager journalists, they get the shot where it's like, oh yeah, when it's our people, we tell the story. You know what I mean? But we can never change the whole, bro, they'll nitpick. Yeah, if you're going to be there with other reporters listening to your thing, they're like, oh, bro, that sounds mean. Write it down,
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, it'll take time. But it doesn't mean that we're improving. We'll improve heaps. If I listen to the stories of like the sort of the senior reporters that have been through it all, man, it's crazy what you hear about them going through. Not just work, it's just like even in the workplace sort of thing. So it's like, man, I'm lucky enough I work with Pacific Islanders and it's just us in the building. You know what I mean? Like these people had to work with other people. So it's, grateful where it's at, but that's where I see that we can change that. So I hope that athletes, again, that's all on us because, these players, they've had a bad relationship with media, up and down sort of thing. So we've got to really get out there to make sure that they trust us and they know that we can tell their stories, if that makes sense.
All these stories you've found over the years and since you've been sports
over the 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year, like covering sports. Like, is it always a case where everything needs to be told, everything needs to be out to the public, or do you get stories where, oh wait, that's a bit sensitive, can't really talk about that?
So far, I haven't gotten anything, and this is me saying that there hasn't been, really like a borderline. If I was to think of stories that have happened in the past in that regard, Pacific, I haven't really. Like, are you trying to say like in terms of like it's been like something that you sitting like sensitive or something like that?
Like something you some information you get that's really insightful that hasn't been out in the media, but things that you've held back on some stories. Because when I think about the Roger Tuivasa situation with the Blues, man, I'm a diehard Auckland Blues fan. Like I bleed Blues all the time. If you wear blue, if you're Moana Samoa or Auckland Blues, I bleed. I bleed blue. Yeah. Man, I was over the moon when RTS came to the Blues. I was like, yeah, man, that's us, man. I was heartbroken when he got injured. And he lost all that time because he needed him to, play games so he can get ready for the All Blacks. Because I knew he was going to be in the All Blacks. Yeah. And, when he came back out of injury, he missed a whole lot of games. And then next minute he's going to go to the Warriors. I thought, you know what? The media, I never hear this in the media, but, this is a decision from NZR or Ian Foster saying that he hasn't had enough games, he's not going to make the All Blacks. You may as well go play for the Warriors or stay, but you're not going to make the All Blacks, which made this decision easy to choose the Warriors. Now that part of the thing never came out. That part of the story never came out because I don't even know, but that's what I assume. It makes sense to me, so, and probably makes sense to a lot of people. So, but that part never came out.
I think when you mentioned the whole insight thing, like something that came through to me, I think I'm not at that point. Like yet, like I'm that guy. Like people are like, hey man, I've got this story. Like I guess the stories I get is like your normal stories, but hopefully at one point that's where it's at. But again, it's the whole trusting thing too, because you've got to, in this space of media, it's like you've got to know people. Everyone's fighting for the story. This was when the Moana Pacifica, when Levi Aumua, when he announced that.
That's another bit of a talking point.
You know what was crazy? Like, this is me in my head. I think this is our team. This is Pacific. If there's anything that it has to, but I knew that's, come on, it's our team, through us, a Pacific lens. And then bloody someone from mainstream like leaked out the information before they even announced it, like a week before. So I don't know how that got out. But
he's leaving.
Yeah, it literally came out like he's going with Chris, and this was like 2 more games into the season. I think
he's going to your team.
Yeah, good old. Hopefully he comes through, but it looks like he won't come to the Manu. But it was it's so that came out, and I guess that sort of relates to what you're saying, like in terms of sensitive. Because man, if that was me, I would have never done that. I would have never leaked it, because it's like, man, I got to respect the privacy of these players. But when you read it, and it came all out, like, we heard from a source that this is all out, and then that's when the conversation created. So before they even announced it, everyone already had these ideas of him. In fact, they mentioned it on Breakdown before I think Kerwin, John, and then to me, I was watching him do it, and I was like, like, these people don't get it. You've got to understand that these players, and because everyone started throwing him under the bus, but when I talked to Aaron Major and he explained the decision, he's like, look, this kid made it clear from day one that he wanted to be an All Black when he came through to us, and he made it clear. And I think that might be the case for Jimmy the Jet, Timothy Tautavanawa, who's also trying to figure that, who were pretty much the star players for Moana this year. So yeah, I think that was an example. Yeah, that's an example of that. How mainstream media didn't care when they got that tip. But yeah, when Breakdown announced it too, and I was like, man, Breakdown would have never come and announced it if this was Bowden Barrett on some leaving kind of contract. They would only announce it afterwards. But yeah, it was the fact that they like openly talked about it like that, and I was like, man, I feel for the kid, I initially hit up more, and I was like, because I knew he was, it sort of hinted in my head, I was like, this guy is probably going to get another contract. And I was like, hey man, like, if there's anyone, I sort of pictured that to Moana that, look, if there's anyone that should tell his story, it's his own people. You know what I mean? And like, I get that he's out there, but I feel like he'll be confident that probably didn't get the response because, again, this is me just starting. This is me. But I want to be, like I said, at the level that I can get there, and that's me. I can talk to that person. But with that, in regards to that, yeah, it's just, I don't really get that much like secret info. Hopefully, I guess, yeah, the only info that I'm getting is like, just everyone else knows. But just the deep sort of stuff, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't get that.
Did Levy ever get an interview from anyone, like a one-on-one, or did he even speak about that?
I think he did. Yeah, it was one of those. It's training sessions, and they're already throwing him questions. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah, it's.
But what was the whole problem anyway? Like, I know there was a leak. I know he wanted to play for All Blacks, and
it was just the whole people were starting to question what's the use of Moana Pacifica thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
If we're bridging pathways and all that, like.
But we were already told in the beginning that 20% of players in the team are going to be aligned to NZR.
Yeah, you know what? When that came out, obviously this is me being a Manu Samoa fan. It's like, man, I wish he came for us. But then when I spoke to Aaron Major, this was me having a sit down with him after the season. It was for a write-up, just, man, how's everything been? And he was leaving to Aaron Major, and he said, man, Levi made it clear. He told us from the start. And then that brings up the whole word of pathways and bridgeways or whatever you can call it. Because I was like, well, then in terms of Moana, how was that a pathway for him? And he said, well, he was with the Blues. He was with the Chiefs. No one really knew him, I think no one could really see who he was. So Moana was a pathway of helping him out where he's at right now. Yeah. And all the credit that he's deserved right now of the player that he's become. So he said he's proud that Moana played a part like that to sort of help him get to where he's at in his career. And people can talk about all of that, but Moana Pacifica has successfully done its job in that space. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the plan anyway. Because
And speaking of Levi Moore, I tell you what, Fale Toipeni, he's the key for that. That space that Levi Moore's gone, I reckon Moana pick up. Because he was in the preseason contract. When we shot their preseason game last year, or this year, they were preparing for the season. That's when they brought on Merkel. But Merkel came on that he was getting ready for the team. But then they signed extra players, like it was like a 40-man squad the extra players were just pre-season contract. They were just, you're in the system type. Faletoi Penny was in that, and that was after the last year's final, where he kicked that winning penalty.
And he scored the winning try against the...
that was this year.
Against Varsity, yeah.
So that, and our pre-season games for Super Rugby, it's like everyone has a run on. There's like an A team, and then on the second half, a whole B team comes on.
He got named one Auckland team. What was it?
Oh, they're naming him tonight. It's today, yeah.
Oh.
Well, he's it was so funny when Auckland put up their squad photo. He wasn't in there, and all the comments. But I think he's like that in Auckland. He's not in the squad, but he's like he's in the system. Like they'll grab him. So I think for today it's just a preseason game because I think they're fielding like 25 players, and he's just in there. I think there's a couple of players in there that are not even in the squad, but it's because it's a preseason game. So
that was a topic on the rugby podcast, the counter how.
Yeah.
We noticed there's no one in the Rovers teams that's in the.
Well, see, I can't speak on in terms of club rugby here because the history of it. But judging from the stuff that I've sort of gathered information from here is that Rovers literally rose from like last year. I think that was when they sprung back to life, and I think everyone's kind of annoyed that they went back to back and still no influence on there. Because even on counties, there's no one.
No.
Because can they only go for Auckland or can they go for counties?
I think they're part of Auckland, the Auckland catchment.
But surely counties can pick up players or not? Or do you have to be in the counties area?
You have to be in the area, like Ardmore.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of guys from Ardmore came over to
play for Rovers.
I think, not sure.
But so Faletoi played that pre-season match.
So he might be lined up for MPA.
But see, that was just the preseason contract too. I was like, man, if there's any club that should pick him up, it's a starting up club. This is what we promised to see from Moana. It's bringing up kids that can't find through their way through Auckland because we already know Auckland's not going to pick him. So how we maneuver there?
But then you don't know if you'll fall under the 20% of players in Moana aligned to the All Blacks.
Oh, bro, he's a Manu Samoa bleed. He's been in the under-20s. Yeah. He's been through Samoa. He's made it obvious that he loves Samoa. And again, this is me saying off like what I've seen. But I think people forget that he's made Samoa rep teams. And I think last year he went on that Samoa. That's why like Miracle in that when they came on board. Miracle knew him because they went on these Samoan teams and he's always put up his hand for making Samoa. For going to and these are like Samoa. These are like the B team for Samoa. So it's kind of clear that he's sort of signaling that he sort of wants there. But that preseason game, he came on because by the time he came on, he only had 5 minutes of a run. Chiefs had already like gotten up 40 something, and then they put him at second 5, I think, or centre, and he just had like a couple of runs. But both those runs, like he was taking on, these are full on Super Rugby contract, man, and he carried it real good, like making some dance through and. Then obviously the game finished and then they were like, yeah, that's a pre-season contract. Thank you to these boys for coming through. And there was also including one of the other boys from Samoa, Joe Perez. He came on there, who they wanted to sign with Miracle, but I think they just signed Miracle, I guess, because they wanted to start off 1-1. But yeah, seeing Faletoi in there, and I'm like, man, this guy's ready, And then obviously that was the start of this year. Now fast forward, it's where we're at right now. Levi's left, Levi Moore. Who knows who else would leave? I reckon he's the answer for Moana. I reckon this is his platform on the show now. Because now that's the question. Everyone's asking, well, is he ready? Because everyone sort of says that now when they bring it up. Well, he might be not ready for Super Rugby. But I'm like, bro, he went back to back, clutch in both moments. So it's like, what else do you want to see,
Just give him a shot, man. Give him a shot.
And Moana's the team to give him a shot. I guess, and they've already had him in that preseason contract. So I reckon that's him. I reckon that's him for, especially that Levi Moore spot. And the good thing about Faletoi is, man, he's got a good kicking game. So, like, it's another option. I feel like if Moana have a different option for kickers, it can win us games, Because that's, if you look at, like, Crusaders, then they've got such a good kicking game. It's Richie, Will Jordan, and then you also have Dave Havili. They can punt the ball how far they can get, and that is such a win for them. So, having Faletoi like that, who's a second option. So, I think William Havili does a lot of the kicking and Christian. So, yeah, like something like that, I guess. But hopefully he gets... But he's playing today, and I think Roger's at fullback for that preseason game today.
Oh, right. Yeah. I've been critical about one team because of the fact that NZI has 20% of the pathway, And it was like, to me, I was thinking, man, how can this team be Pacific Island when NZR can just use this as a extra team to see if players are good enough to make the All Blacks, like, and always like it's not really a Pacific team. And yeah, it's something that stuck with me that never quite, felt right, until it's our own team. Yeah. So.
And you're like saying it like in terms of like how Fiji drew is.
Exactly, because then it puts into question, in my mind, like, why can't it be like Fiji draw? Because to me, Fiji draw has it as their own team. I think they don't answer to anyone, And to me, it makes sense that one of Pacifica should be that, or is it the 6 New Zealand franchise? Because to me, it may as well be. And if it is the six New Zealand franchise, that you can play for Samoa or Tonga as well, like, just, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then, but then I'd thought like it would be better if you just represent a second Auckland team, like change the branding of this team, call it South Auckland Raiders or something, South Auckland something, so you can get South Auckland on board. Because when I look at the stadiums, heaps of empty seats down there, mm-hmm. and they're losing games too, and it's like,
I guess that's the other thing too, because it's like I think Aaron Major talked about it. It's hard when there's a lot of chat, but then they're also not getting the results that they were wanting. You can talk so much about things, and if it doesn't help, if the team is losing matches, close matches too, really close matches for them. I think the good signs, as you mentioned, in terms of the team, we already see there's about 8 Tongans in the Tongan team. So there's already that presence in there, which I hope it can influence other Tongans that come through. Again, it's different too, because it's like players already have an idea of where they want to end when they come through the Moana. And it's the same too with having Miracle, because I think Miracle's inclusion really sort of sparked the fire for the boys back home in Samoa, that these are things we only talked about and dreamt of, but he's actually out here making it visible. So like, he can sort of be that guy. I think it's the Tonga team. There's like about 8 of them in there, like, that play for Moana. And I can honestly say that the Moana boys have actually made an influence in that Tonga team, even the Samoa team. But I know where you're right, because there's always that behind of like, New Zealand rugby can just dip in whenever and bring it. And in terms of offers, I feel like they would have the bigger offer, So it's a hard one. But I guess I like where it's at in terms of that. They've shown that players are, and then they've also shown that New Zealand can also take these players through poor Levi.
And that's the part that I don't like. That part of it.
But man, like, I respect him. The more sort of gotten to know the journey that he's gone through, it's like, okay, like, that's it. And I do wish for the best of him. I really hope he does good, because now that he's going to go to Crusaders, which is a whole different environment, and I hope that Moana has set him up to sort of understand that, because it's going to be a tough battle there in the midfield for Crusader spots. But I do hope that he cracks and gets his dream of what he wants. But speaking of Moana, man, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of the results, and I know now with the new coach, Zana, and he's already in the Manu Samoa coaching staff. So it's like, that can be a big help then. We can have that 20%, but because we have people that are inside these teams, maybe they can be the answer to all of this in terms of...
Because he's the bridge, now.
Yeah. And, start doing smaller stuff like, hey, let's take games back to Samoa. Let's take games back to Tonga. We've seen how Drew react in Fiji. Let's take some more games there, Because Fiji, that's their home ground now. In Fiji, the Drew team. So it's like, we got to find how to market that team properly to really make it authentically for us. You are right, that whole stealing of players, I feel like it's going to happen again. But
it's hard because of the lure of money overseas.
Not gonna lie though, I didn't know about that 20% thing. In all honesty, now you just mentioned it. Is that?
It came up when Kevin Singhu, he came on the breakdown, and before they had their first season, and he described the structure of it, because that was one of the questions too about what's NZR's involvement in this team, and he talked about 20%. New Zealand has a 20% stake in alignment to NZR. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a really hard topic to talk about but in all honesty, when I talk to these coaches and they actually have such a heart for the Pacific teams. It's just unfortunate. Yeah, I think man, Levi's case here, that was because, man, could you imagine the damage he'd been making right now for Samoa or Fiji? Like, he's just literally that guy that would be there for it. I knew too when he got picked for that New Zealand 15 team last year. I was like, hey, like, you know. So yeah, he can respect what he sees and what he wants. You know, that's what he wants. But I guess for moving forward, obviously, yeah, with Tana coming in, it's going to be a whole sort of shift into it, and hopefully for some better days. And again, like you said, win games, man. They've got to get back on the winning track. You know, I think for Drew's case, you know, they made the playoffs this year, and it was easy for people to praise them and not really see the other stuff that was going on because they were winning games. And you can do so much, but if you're not putting out the results that they want, then I guess that, you know, it's just not helping their case. So hopefully a new year, have these international boys that are going for duties, and hopefully some new signings. I really do pray that they have some new signings here in Auckland, good club signings, you know, that probably get overlooked at, and they set them up for Samoa, Fiji, or Samoa and Tonga, and hopefully Fiji, you know, have some more on the Fijian players come through.
You know, with Manu Samoa,
yep.
Like, are they still facing the same sort of problems that were exposed when?
Go
ahead. Are they still right now facing the same problems that they faced when, you know, the players exposed the management side of it with the money, and, you know, the politics around?
Yeah.
Is that changed now with the new government? And
the thing is, people need to realize, man, there'll always be problems for.
Yeah.
It's always it's an ongoing case. I think that year it was because, in terms of politics, I think now I don't really know if there's politics involved, but that year it was because Tulepa, he was Prime Minister, but he was also the head of the chairman, I think, or something like that.
So conflict of interest. But it was it seems to me, if you watch that documentary, Oceans Apart, you've seen that? Like, you know, he was it was Dan Leo, and he was trying to get in behind what's going on, and it seems like after watching that documentary, it seems like it had to happen, because otherwise they will never have any money. Like, government had to be involved, and the same with Fiji and Tonga too. Yeah.
In terms of money itself, it's locally itself, the players back home that play the club stuff they do, it's really low money wise. But that's not an excuse for them how they acted on that 2011 team. And I'm glad for how those players came out and stood. Because if you look at it now, there's those players now that are running in there. Seilala Mapusua, Mahonri, that's that generation that came through all of that. And you can see there's a shift now in culture.
That's a good thing.
There probably are still problems that we don't know of, the inside house problems, but it'll all sort of go to sleep if they prove out the results they do. Like, you know, it's similar to that whole Drew and Moana thing. And there was so much going on in Drew's team. But because they were winning, people showed up. Like you said, no empty seats at all. They went to Christchurch, played the Crusaders. They got pumped. But you see the community. I think they had like a plane fly from Fiji to Christchurch, specific for fans.
But I think they're with Drua, they've got a more of an identity. I mean, I know Moana has an identity. It's Pacifica, but, you know, to be Pacifica in Auckland, when you got the Auckland Blues as well, you know, I mean, it's hard to, you know, sort people over.
It makes those the Blues Moana matches real interesting though when you watch it. It's crazy. And they almost got up on them, Moana, this year. That game where they just won by a penalty try. Yeah, because it's pretty much like another Islander team against another island team. But yeah, I think because Fiji's case, it's specifically on Fiji. Yeah, so it's like, I think, yeah. And because I think Fiji, they came out from Australia, the Drua team, they were in there. Yeah, in terms of that Samoan thing, I think now it's like those players, the ex-players that are back into the management roles now, helping out. Like, yeah, there are changes, but it's like, I don't know, it's one of those, you you can tell that there are still stuff. We're always down on funds. Samoa will never have the money that has All Black funding and stuff. Because I think the stories were like players were paying for their own airfares when like Maori show and that they would drop their contracts to go. So maybe that's the case still now, some of these boys, but it seems as if it's heading into a good direction. And I'm just proud that we're back onto some winning stride. Well, we were losing back then to like Fiji, Tonga. Like we couldn't even win the own Pacific stuff. And here we are trying to go World Cup. So now it's good that we're starting to beat these teams back.
I think we're 10th on the world.
Yeah, because you remember back then.
Rankings.
Remember back then we used to like swipe through like Japan, Georgia, teams like that, and then somehow like we're just like beating them. So it was like, and then
we got Islanders in Japan now. And
yeah. The Japan game was pretty good for them. The start game last year, last week. So yeah, I guess there'll always be problems. I guess there's always a history of Samoans in management type things. There's always something going on, not just the rugby. There's just in any general sort of thing. But I guess after those incidents in 2011 and they brought that to light, I guess it's really made people look at them on Samoa team. And I'm like, man, how can we bounce back from that? But it's good seeing the old players, the ex-players come through and do it.
The eligibility rules, the 3-year stand down is pretty good too, because now we've got some ex-All Blacks back in the Samoa team. Charlie Faumuna, he jumped on for the first time, his first cap last week, which was good to see.
Luatua is playing today. Today. Yeah, hopefully they go good. They'll be really good. But I see that Fiji have put up a whole draw type team. A lot of the players drew. Yeah,
I saw Frank Lamani was playing. And there was a guy I had because I played rugby fantasy.
Oh yeah.
And I had that guy that got suspended for the whole year or got dropped because he beat up his girlfriend or something.
Oh,
he was the winger, but he was good.
Bossy.
Yeah. Is he? What's he doing? Is he back or?
Fiji didn't tell us what happened, but it sounded like a real bad issue.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a shame.
Bro, he was last year just run through players. But it wouldn't even be like blockbusting runs. Like he'd just be like, yep, sweet. There's a try. The Chiefs game, I think.
Yeah.
But they almost came back in the last minute. It was in Fiji. He literally just started out of nowhere and it was like off some play. Because that's the thing about these Fijian teams. They're really good on those errors. They play off on errors, other people's errors, which they showed against Tonga when Tonga was sort of coming back last week.
That's right.
Tonga would be on a good roll, drop the ball, 5 men, and they just pick it up, chucking it around, and that's it. But yeah, I was real saddened for that Bossy guy because I was actually looking forward to him this season. But yeah, I think it was something to do with like personal stuff. But, yeah.
I want to talk to you about your writing, how that evolved. Because obviously you did writing when you were younger, did poetry. Like when you talked about how through your work you get a story and then now you got to write about it. Like how the first time you were trying to figure that out and develop your own style, what was that process for you?
It was like trying to fit everything in. I think that was at first because you're like, man, I don't want to miss every detail. I want to put everything in. And then as I went through on with the writing thing, at work, and obviously because we have our producer, he subs it. A lot of critical advice there too. It's like, hey, look, man, sometimes if this is where you're trying to get there in terms of finding the angle that sits there. Say for instance, it would be like like the match is finished and you're writing about it. Like he said, already straight from the start, put out the result on the start, and then that's it. And then sort of follow through on the other stuff. Or if there were comments, like if you want whatever's like the main thing you want, don't leave it at the end sort of thing. Like try to figure out where it goes and sits. Chop out some unnecessary stuff you're trying to explain when it's like the game. And then the time management. So if you're like dropping this and the game's finished like 2 days ago, try to figure out another specific thing that hasn't been already mentioned about the game. Like everyone said about the knock-ons and that, and then here you are 2 days later still writing about the knock-ons, but like no, write about something else. And I've picked that up with mainstream media when they cover sports. The first article that drops on the night straight away after the game is they did good, that was the game. And then throughout the week it'll be like bit by bit by bit of the other stuff that happened later on, like the interviews, and they'll bit like what is it, excited for this comment they see in the press conference, and then it'll come out slowly. So it's like you've got to be real cautious of when you're writing and when you're putting out these things. So like those sports raps I've been doing, I was like, man, I need to like figure out how, if it's too late to write on, or if it's too late, how do I still make it relevant in terms of how I'm writing? And that was a big help for me, I guess. The other thing was try not to ramble, because like I'd be like writing, typing, and like, man, I'm starting to sound like I'm saying my own thing now. But like, no, try to sound it, keep it simple, keep it short, you know? Which is always the advice you get from a young age, like writing essays. But because I still do it now, so it's like a lot of help when I do that. And then, yeah, just read a lot. Read other people's writings. Read other sports critics. Watch what they say. How can you sort of see the game, how they're seeing it? Be like, man, how are they seeing it? How did they see that? When you go to press conferences, and I see how they do it, how they react, how they ask questions, how they write it down. So yeah, like the first ever press box, media box I went to, I was like, oh no, surely not everyone takes a laptop. And then I just went for like a book. I got there, everyone was on a laptop, like, and I was like, man, this is such a rookie mistake. So like things like that, like, okay, everyone's on a laptop. You ask them like, how do you cover this? Because these guys have been doing it for ages. And then you watch how they write it, and then they like build it up. So yeah, it's a lot of learning, I guess. But in terms of the style, I've tried to like remove it from like, because I always hate people that write stuff and then you read it and you're like, this guy's just telling us what he did the whole day, you know, like, or like it'll be like a title like Life of a New Zealand-born Samoan, and you read it and this guy's just talking about himself, you know, like that's life of you, bro, like, you know. So like, how to be real inclusive on it. And again, the biggest thing is always doing your research. Don't write down anything and you haven't like actually gone and fact checked it, you know, because people come back to you and be like, hey, no, that's not right. Yeah. So it's a lot, but yeah, I think it's all on that.
Is there types of sort of writing and being a journalist? Because there's writing facts, there's writing about the event, and then there's opinion writing.
Yeah.
And then there's like long form.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there sort of different styles that have died out now, being in this TikTok age where short attention spans? Because I kind of imagine, like, generally people don't read anymore. And if like 2-page, like, people don't read magazines anymore. It's like,
like newspapers and that,
And if not, then they're reading on their phone.
Yeah.
And you don't want to scroll for a long time. So I can imagine, like, at the beginning of each paragraph, it has to keep the reader.
You gotta kick off, straight away there,
You don't want them to like lose be bored, so you gotta.
Yeah.
So what kind of tricks do you do to make that happen? Like, you talked about putting the score first.
That was just the thing I realized, because I was like, once your emphasis you're trying to get here, if you're saying All Blacks won straight away, and here you are like, it was a cold night, the game was, and then you're already talking about when they won at the middle, and they're like, man, like, put it straight there. What was the highlight of the game that stood out for you? Like Frizzell, that was the one that stood out for me, stood out for everyone.
When he did the Jordan Mauafu
but just him doing that first half, it was like, I don't know what he drank, but he just came out bumping off everyone, bowling off everyone, tackling everyone. So like, and then the title I put there was like, Frizzell's fires up the All Blacks, like that, and then just straight away talk about him. Like, not like, just sum it up real quick. You're like, All Blacks won. It was after some good guidance from the front from Shannon Frizzell. And because he was Tongan too, which was, man, yes. Like, you know, like, I'm already like right about him. But I think for that, when you're saying about like being real, what is it? It's not like clicky, but it's like you got to really know when to. But I guess that's where like Instagram stories and that come through, I guess. In honesty, I don't really know. I don't have a specific answer for it. Maybe there are tips or ways to do it, but it's not like I came in and I started and I was like, I just knew, I was like, I'm just going to write. But I know there are people that do it good, like those Instagram influencers that are real good at it, real good at sort of honing it down so that people actually go back to it and scroll. But I guess for me, it's just how I would see it, is just keeping it really descriptive and knowing your audience. I think that's a big thing, knowing who you're sort of referring to and who you're talking to and figuring it out, I guess. That's not a really great answer, I guess, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But you're right about that, like how everyone's just online, and when it's a too long read, it's like, oh yeah, bro, that's enough, and then just scroll off it.
Yeah. Because I remember back in the days, I used to read a lot of sports stuff.
Yeah.
And I loved the columnist.
Yeah.
because they'll write long form of and it's cool. It's cool to read.
Yeah.
But you don't see that anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if that sort of thing died out because of the TikTok age.
Yeah, because those big things are like
like magazine writing.
Yeah, at work it's I don't really know if we've done that much of it. It's just like we just write
because I think it's not the way things are going now. It's dead. It's died.
It's like it's up to you, to be honest. Like for me, it's like the whole Whaletoi thing. I wanted to put out a piece and I wanted to just title it straight away like Whaletoi is the answer for Moana Pacifica, straight away. Because in my head I'm like, man, that can create conversation. And it's things like that that's an opinion. But like I said, I'm not just gonna start rambling. I'm gonna go back and look at stuff what he's done and how it sets him up for Moana Pacifica and what he can bring to the table in terms of what Levi Moore has left now, because he's he's put back in the team because he's left now. So I think like that kind of stuff, columnists, I really used to love reading opinion pieces. People, especially people that bring us stuff that like just out of nowhere, like it's just people like bring up their thoughts of, this is what's gonna happen. And I used to read it a lot. For like an example, like the Samoa Observer, when I used to read heaps when I was young, but it used to be like a thing. Like me and my dad, he'd go buy it. It was like $2.50 in the shop, and I'd go to the editorial pieces where the editor talks, and like he just gives a sum up of the whole week of what's been big happening in Samoa, but from a real critical opinion view type. And it's cool. Like you see that kind of stuff. And they had a segment like Between the Lines. It was like a short column. It was like a real comedy type, but it explains like small stuff that happened like during the week, but through someone's like funny view of it, I guess. But yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, you're right about that. You always love reading kind of stuff like that, and especially when people like dig deep on issues, especially sports, like not on field stuff, but like off field, back chat, sort of back stuff that not really everyone knows in a way. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. People don't read anymore a lot, especially newspapers. So just trying to transition to that. But I'm telling you what, this it will never get old. It will always be something that you're doing. People will always read it. And everyone says about TV, but it will still stick around in a way. I think people are just saying that it's dying out because of social media, but social media is way too much on now. So yeah, hopefully it will die out. I guess, yeah.
For someone like you, being in the space that you are, like, do you see opportunities in the future on how we could be, like, looking at overseas? Like we're talking about the personalities some of these journalists have now. Like sometimes, especially in a place like America, like when sports is a big entertainment thing, and sometimes the sports journalists are bigger than as celebrities.
Yeah,
guys like Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah,
or people like that. Shannon Sharp.
Yeah,
oh, he's an athlete.
Yeah,
but Skip Bayless.
Yeah,
people like that.
Oh yeah.
Or in Australia, you got the guy that Paul Kent. He got fired, but
and Buzz in that.
Yeah, Buzz in that. These are journalists, but they got some kind of aura of being up there with their
because they've got in that kind of like thing where they don't care if people say they played or not.
Yeah,
they've just at that level where like people like, and I know people beg him, but people know that they can put him in that conversation of knowing that he can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, and I spoke about how New Zealand doesn't have someone like that really, but is there a space New Zealand can get into?
But there's a space for everything in New Zealand. It just depends on how it's accepted and received, I guess. Here,
does that talk to how slow we are to accept these kind of things, or we just like to see it overseas and no one see it in our own backyard, sort of thing?
I guess it's because it depends too on what the sports were back then in New Zealand, like, because obviously back then it was rugby. Rugby was at the forefront of everything. But now you have sports like basketball, whose culture revolves around that in terms of having people like, not like the media people, their personalities. So I guess it'll be the influence of those kind of sports. It'll be hard to put it into rugby, but they should put it into sports like that. Sports like NFL, if they're sort of introduced here, it'll bring that kind of culture here too. I covered when Jesse Saipolu came to New Zealand. They had some clinics they did like a training clinic, and it was like you see them like the whole how they even talk to these kids. It was like whole football, family, faith, like real Coach Carter type. And you're like, see, this is what we need because these guys have seen it, so they need to bring it in. So I guess it'll take time for that. But at the same time, it'll depend on how people will take it. Most of the time, they don't really like it. And like, we don't need that kind of stuff here. But someone's going to start it. I seen Paddy Cow.
I'm hinting you should start it. You should be the guy.
I don't know about that. Yeah. But there should be like a Pacific talk show for like sports stars and like that kind of stuff.
I know Sky had one. They had one with Oscar Kiteley.
That
Brown Brothers or something.
Oh, yeah. Brown, but it was like in a garage.
Yeah.
It was like a real fancy setup. I don't know what happened to that one. It's just
Yeah, well, that's an example of what I meant before when we were talking about.
But in terms of the individual, you've got to have someone that's like real personality, because that's the other thing. Yeah, you can create the show, but if you don't have the person to do it, I guess if you're trying to get to that,
Are we saying Oscar's not their person?
No, Oscar's the man. Oscar's a goat. Like, honestly,
Oscar's the man.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much of an influence he's had in terms of the whole script writing side of things. Because in Samoa, you'd see him on like Siona's Wedding. Oh yeah, that's the guy in Siona's Wedding. When he came here, he's such a great. I think he's a journal too. He was a journal too, and I think he's running now for. Is he at West?
Yeah, Tianutu.
Yeah. And man, that guy's just got. He's so much importance for him, man. But yeah, I do hope that it changes. I guess there's that show with Adam Blair now on.
Yeah, the Dutch show.
Yeah, he's on that too. I guess it's like sort of starting. I guess but people will always see Adam Blair as Adam Blair. That's the thing. Like, so I think that's what you're trying to mean in terms of like a personality. Someone's
but a journalist. Not a sports person.
Yeah. I don't know.
I thought it's funny because I thought Spark Sports had the opportunity to be a real rival to Sky. Have some.
It couldn't even be a rival. The connection was lagging when you still watched the World Cup.
And that was the reason why they started to fail. Like, even the management didn't believe.
Just stick to the phones, man.
Well, when that debacle happened, when Spark did the World Cup, they said, we're gonna show the World Cup. We got the rights, and then they fucked up with the internet.
Yeah.
It was like, then the management from then on, the management just didn't have a faith in the platform anymore. Yeah. So they sort of ran it down to the ground after that. But man, I still believe, if they knew, if they even followed what Australia was doing, if they even followed what America was doing, get some personalities in, get some good talk shows to rival those talk shows in Sky Sport, they would have had something, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, even cricket, they would have made cricket into. They had cricket. They could have made it into something big.
Because they're not the thing now in Spark Sport.
Nah, I think TVNZ took it.
Because they took the cricket too. I remember trying to look for cricket from my granddad. I was like, and it was like Spark Sport. But the league one would always stand out for me. The Tour Samoa, the first game, England, and they kept on buffering, and like obviously by then I was just angry by then too. Yeah. So I was like, I just wanted to throw the TV out because I think they buffered for like majority of the start, the second half, and then it just clicked back on, and England were up by like how many points?
Oh man, that Rugby League World Cup last year, that was something. Yeah. That was something. That was amazing. Yeah. The way they ran it, the competition itself, and how Rugby League I think they have it right, in terms of the eligibility. Yeah. And to put a Samoan team like that, or a Tongan team as well, with those stars, and be competitive.
I can tell you this: it was a boring tournament during the pool matches. There weren't like any matches that really stood out. It only sort of got intense when they reached up to the playoffs. Like, for instance, Australia Kangaroos, when they were like beating everyone off. And I think that's what a lot of people were trying to say in terms of there's not enough tests in terms of some for the other teams. Like, Jamaica there, like, you know what I mean? And I think that's why Samoa's storyline came into play on how big that World Cup became, because I think they got to owe it to Samoa for what they brought, because their underdog story really sort of still stuck everyone by watching the footy. But yeah, now it's crazy. It's crazy seeing all of that happen. And the parades and all that. It was cool. It was really cool.
Certainly, man. It's been a great chat, man.
Oh, bro. It's crazy, man. Oh, wow. I don't even realize it.
So what's happening for you next few weeks?
Next few weeks, like as for work? Or?
Yeah, for work. Like, we got the Rugby Championship.
Yep, we got that coming up.
We got the World Cup. What's the World Cup prep?
Okay, this is a big See what I'm saying? I got a big that Fiji will make the cup quarterfinals. Because if you look at their pool, it's Fiji, Australia, Georgia, and Wales. And obviously, you look at the Wallabies, you're like, And then you look at Wales, who are, I think, at their worst Six Nations campaign, I think, the past 2 years. So, yeah. And then you look at Fiji, and man, because I feel like, as much as Samoa, that everyone's hyping them up, but in the Pacific nations itself, I always think Fiji's the team to beat because of what they can field. And, man, you look at their team now. What's his name? Tuisova was a beast for their team last week. And we already know what he does in terms of the world and his sports. But there's that number 7, what's his name? The loose forward for Fiji. He's got like the tape around his head too. He's like well known, regarded in the UK for his style of play.
Oh yeah.
And I just have this big feeling that Fiji are gonna make it. So I'm sort of writing that down to think that that's gonna be like the story for World Cup. I'm gonna project it sort of thing, but not like full up coming up like yeah. So that's where all that sort of style of writing comes in. Like yeah, this is and why I think this is gonna happen. And I mean even Georgia have been mean. Like they've been crazy. Like upsetting. I think who was it that they beat? Someone in the Six Nation comp. They came through and beat them. And even yeah. And I think the under-20s team too. They did really good too. Yeah, they placed better than the New Zealand under-20s. Jeez. Yeah. I guess that's gonna be a big one I'm following. The Netball World Cup is on right now. Tonga I think beat Fiji last night. I saw. And that's Tonga's first ever Netball World Cup, I think. But they're on the come up because, similar to League, I think there's a couple of players. Do you remember Mark Gerard from Wallabies?
Yeah.
So his sister, she used to play for Australia. She's like a senior now. She's back now, giving back to the Tongan team, and she's back to playing. And Catherine Latu, who also played for Silver Ferns, so they're back there. So yeah, just trying to follow them, see how they go, because I think they've got Australia coming up. But they beat Fiji yesterday. But it was crazy seeing the national anthem when they sung it, because a lot of those girls was the first time, especially those younger ones. They was in tears, man. They were like emotional about it and singing. So it's like, seeing stuff like that. Yeah. So following the Rugby World Cup, we got the FIFA, we got Football Ferns playing with Malia Steinmetz. She's the Samoan girl that plays with them. We had her story run today on the show. Went out today in 9th grade here.
Yeah.
And obviously they've got to win. So it's like one of those, you're hoping that New Zealand and Football Ferns make it up to the playoffs, because as much as as a Football Ferns collective, but you also want to see our Samoan girl there. And there's also a Fijian girl, I forgot her name, and she's on the bench too, and she's crazy, man. Good impact. So, you want them to do good. So, yeah, I'm praying that they beat Switzerland, because that loss to Philippines, I don't know if you saw that, it was out of it. Like, I think everyone sort of went in watching it thinking, yeah, we're going to win. And then, Philippines scored. Yeah. And that was it. So, yeah, it's that. Seeing how they would progress through. And then just following the Pacific Nations too. Pacific Nation Cup, see how that goes out. I think today's game with Fiji and Samoa will really give a good indication of, because Samoa's already been in Japan. Fiji's already at its peak of what it is. And Tonga. I think Tonga is the team that I see that really has a lot to prove. They sort of showed it in Australia A, and then they lose to Fiji, back to it last year. They've got this, in terms of on paper, they've got the better team. But it's just gelling together. I think that's where they're at. Which is always the problem when you have too many star players. It's like trying to figure out where to all put them.
I thought they had the team to watch, considering they got all those players back.
Well, how good was this was the game against Australia A. How good was Folau and the Putau?
Yeah, together,
the 14-15, man, that was crazy, man. And then one of the, I guess, underrated Moana players, Fine Inisi. He was good, man. And he's always good for Moana. Fine Inisi's always scoring tries, and he's always making some good games. It was just unfortunate them losing a lot.
It's also a shame. Mapi didn't make it because of his eligibility.
Yeah,
ends after the World Cup.
I saw his post. It was crack when I was reading his post on Facebook. He's like, "Hey, everyone, just relax. I'm not, because I think everyone was like, oh, where's this guy? But yeah, he would have been. Yeah, I reckon him in the midfield. I didn't even know there was a guy. Was it Peter Aki, who's now playing? I didn't even know he was Samoan. He was Samoan Tongan. And but you look them up, and they're highly regarded and respected in where they play in the UK. So it's really good seeing them come back. And I think I guess it's going to be the new thing that people are going to start accepting of where union's going to be at. and that eligibility rules, like, it really opens up a lot. So can you imagine now the other players that are like 1 more year for the eligibility, like haven't played in ages, like Laumape. You can think of other All Blacks players that, you know, have come through in that and that just probably one test in it. So yeah, it looks good for the future. But yeah, that's what we'll be following up on. And then just other community stories that we've gone in. I was yesterday with the Things That Matter play. It was like the casting crew doing the rehearsals. So that play is based on the book written by Dr. David Geller. He was a ICU specialist, like a surgeon in Middlemore for like about 30 plus years. And he writes about the whole experience. Like he saw it firsthand. The different people, you know, Middlemore, that's like South Auckland hub. A lot of islanders have gone through that hospital. He's seen it all, seen everything else that happened with, and even inside the workplace and where it's at right now. So it's a cool play. And directing is Ana Pilla Polateva, who's you remember Pani and Pani?
Yeah.
So one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, she's which I didn't even know she was a big director here in sort of the stage thing. It was good chatting with her because I asked about because the play pretty much goes around healthcare, how healthcare system is really a big failure in New Zealand. This is all reflecting to the time of the David Geller guy. But it's so cool, well, not cool, but it's just fitting enough that you're bringing it up now with just everything going on at the moment. And even Middlemore's copying a lot of slack too, with like under-resourced, a lot of nurses wanting to go on strike, nurses in general wanting to go on strike.
I think it was Labour to pull out that policy that they have to prioritise survivors.
Yeah, and then I saw everyone, So, politics itself, man, I don't really know anything of it, but it's because I work with a lot of them that follow it, and a lot of those, the senior journals, that's where I hear a lot of it. And you realize, man, that's another big part. As much as sports, we're getting representation, but we're getting a big representation on politics. So, yeah, there was a policy, then you have to take in your, what is it? Prioritize, is it your ethnicity or something like that? And there was a whole talk about that, but yeah, I guess for work, that's all what's coming up, and then just other big stuff going on, and just seeing where it all goes at.
With TP Plus and the sports side of it, what is the goal there for the sports side especially?
Well, TP Plus in general, want to grow online the space and hopefully get more people through onto the website. For sports, it's creating, I guess, content, but not only that covers sports, but just outside of content that, something that you wouldn't really want to see, or not really wouldn't want to see, that you really don't see, like, sort of other stories that we don't know about these players. I feel like there are stories there within these players. Like, for instance, when I covered that FIFA girl, the Smiley's Diamonds, we went back to her house in Onehunga and talked about her grandma and her mum and the pictures and everything. So sort of like that, bringing a different perspective into what we see, the sports stars that we have. Because there's no question that there's heaps of sports stars, but there's heaps. You look at, we've got the representation now on field. We just need the off field one. So that's where we come in with that. And, online content now, it's different from your news mainstream. It's like, there's a lot of, like a comedy type vibe to it. It's fun. It's more open. So like that kind of sense to it, we want to bring it to it. It's challenging for myself because like, I can be crack up when we talk with people, but it's hard trying to put that personality out onto camera. So I think that's what we want to grow at and want to put out more what we can and hopefully grow our space in terms of the online presence and Instagram. But yeah, I guess that's for sports, I guess, yeah. Hopefully get out more there.
Because there's Coconut TV as well, eh?
Yep, there's element there, yeah.
Are they part of you guys or is that different?
Nah, so they do their own thing too.
Oh, okay.
And you see online, they post up a lot in terms of their social media and everything they do and stuff. So yeah, it's good. I guess it's good seeing and knowing that there's a lot of Pacific media. It's not just Coconut TP. There's also PMN, Radio Samoa. Yeah. There's so much like New with him, who've been around for the radio game. And then you have, I think, other people that are doing their own little sort of freelance sort of side thing, which is crazy because you think back then, and there was no one. There was no one. So it's like we're growing. I mean, now we still say that we're less, but it's more than what it was before. So we had the Pacific Media Forum like about 3 weeks back, and that was buzzy because like I didn't even know that there were other journals, other young reporters. And I've got a mate, he's at PMN, Matt Manu Kuo, and I always chat with him, and he's doing sports too, so it's cool. I guess we've got people now, so it's like, well, now we got to stick together now. Because I feel like, we can talk about having representation off field and on these media spaces, but if we just keep on attacking our own, which is something that's prone to Pacific people to do, then it's just not helping our cause. So it's, really trying to stick together, us and everyone else that's doing it. But man, they're doing good. PMN, they do the great job. Coconut and all that, they're doing really great. You see online and this stuff they do, and it makes you, as who's also on the Pacific outlet too, it makes you want to do more too, and makes you want to help out and put out the cause. Because at the end of the day, we're all the same, us Pacific. So we're just trying our best to do what we can for our stories that mainstream have been covering for all these years. If that makes sense, yeah.
No funding for you to go over to France?
Nah.
Follow the World Cup?
It's always the case, because when you go with those Balangi guys at the media box, they're like, oh, yeah, you're going to be at the World Cup. I was like, no, I'm not going to be at the World Cup. We're starting up, if you compare us to, which is always the case, we start up even Pacific, but it's in terms of funding, there's no way to compare, with the bigger guys. But then that's on you. If you want to get to that goal, then that's up to you. You can't be like, man, I want to fly to the World Cup, and then be like, oh, just chill for a bit. You got to do your work and show that you're worth something, and hopefully later on in the year that you're not only seen in work, but, you can get other people interested in you. So if I feel like, if I see, say, for instance, commentating, that would be something that I would be really keen to do, which is obviously an avenue that you can get flown out to wherever. You look at Mills and that, they just sit on the plane and go. So if I want to be there, then I'm going to create some kind of, interest into these people to see me. So go to these things, make sure that they see me, make sure that they read things that I put out, and try to promote yourself into that way. So, I would love to go to these things, but you've got to work for it, and it'll take time, but, it's, time is now. So I guess that's what we're trying to do. But I'd love to fly out. So if there's anyone that does it, but that'll be crazy. Because did you see Justin Marshall got dropped by Sky?
Yeah.
They picked him up, a South African channel.
How do you find him? Because
he's a legend.
I'll tell you the truth. I know you find him a legend. He's in your neck of the woods.
Good old Bumfa. He's cracker, man.
I hate him, man.
As a player or as a commentator?
Both. As a player, because I hate Crusaders. My worst team.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm an Auckland Blues man. That's our arch rival. And
no, sorry, arch rivals Chiefs, sorry. No. Yeah, it's Justin Marshall. Yeah.
I was happy when he didn't get accepted, and Mills did, and everyone else did, except for him. And he was complaining on the paper. He was mad. I was like, shame. Then I see South Africa picked him up. It's being there, commentating group.
I've got the name of the channel, the South African channel. Yeah, they picked them up. I saw it was yesterday. I think I saw the written. Someone wrote about it. I knew they were going to pick him up. He's that kind of person that, when you speak of personalities, because let's be honest, you hate him because of that personality he has, eh?
Because he's biased.
That's what I mean, but he brings that. So that's the kind of thing we need, I spoke, because you look at Stephen A. Smith, and everyone hates him too because some of the stuff is outlandish, but I feel like if we're wanting to create that kind of thing, we need people like Justin, because, man, everyone hates that guy, man. You talk to a lot of people, everyone hates him. Because, I used to, find him annoying to his commentating, but I realized the only reason why people because the things he says is what it is. So it's and he had almost had that scrap with what's his name?
With Akida should have knocked him out.
And what's his name? Caleb Clark trying to be the good guy stopping. That was out of him when that all came out. That's what it was when he had the Crusaders and Blues game, and it was Akida's 100th. And then they shot back to the comment. I think it was Breakdown, and they were talking about him. And Justin Marshall's, and I was like, look at this guy trying to step him out last year.
Well, it doesn't help. Justin Marshall used to play for the Crusaders, and then when he's commentating on the Crusaders, he's talking them up big time. And so he should, And so he should, but
not as bad as John Kerwin's one.
But every time he's doing that, being a Blues fan and hearing that, he's rubbing in the wound, man. He's digging it in, man. He's twisting the knife every time he speaks.
But you gotta say he does have good takes. He does have good takes when you listen to him. He's
whatever, man.
Hey, he's not as bad as JK. Oh, bro, that guy is just when that guy riles up the Blues when you watch him, man, it is funny, man. And then they bring him on the next episode. I think it was last year when they lost in that final, where it was just Blues were just a no show on that final at Eden Park. And he brought him up, and he's like, well, you know, the positives we can take this out too. He's like, bro, I don't know if there's any positives right now. Like this, but this is JK. Like,
well, you know what? I love JK because he's from South Auckland.
Yeah.
You know, he played for All Blacks. Yeah. He played for Auckland Rugby when Auckland Rugby was powerful. Mm-hmm. He didn't do much for the Blues. You know, Blues had a losing record when he was coach. So, I scratched that out of my.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like having him and Justin Marshall on the crew, it's good. The only reason
you need that banter, the back and forth,
and because even Jeff Wilson's doing it good too. And Mills, it's funny when you watch Mills that he really didn't want to go into those conversations. Mills always was like keeping it safe, but now he's not afraid. Now you watch Mills, he like actually shows his opinion. Like he can disagree with JK, he likes disagreeing with Jeff Wilson too, and Marshall. Everyone likes to disagree with that guy.
Well, you know, when I see Mills, right. He's a brown face with no brown voice, if you know what I mean. You know, when I look at American sports, when I see guys like Michael Irving come on First Take, ESPN, and they're doing their segment. They do a segment called Top 3 Playmakers. And I don't know if you've seen it, but he's with Ryan Clark, and they're doing all this like dancing. They're rhyming.
Oh, like real. I'm trying to say like real African American.
Real African American, and we're talking about mainstream TV.
Yeah,
you know they're themselves. You know that's what I want to see on mainstream TV here.
Yeah, I think it'll take time for Mills too, because it depends too on. Because was he like? Because I think he was talking about he felt like he wasn't really like in the culture sort of side of thing. He struggled. I think he was talking about his journey, but like. If you think about that kind of stuff, you think of like Sonny Bill.
Oh, perfect example. See Sonny Bill on Stan Sports being himself?
Jeez. And all respect to Sonny, man, but it's a hard listen commentating. But that side of things where he comes in and he like, man, Sapos, how's that going? And he's just joking around. And then when they throw it back to the white guys at the, oh yeah, thanks, Sonny.
Yeah, because they don't understand.
They don't understand.
But you know, it's awkward. But I appreciate it. I've said that on the podcast before. I appreciate that because that's us, man.
And like you know, the good thing about it, Sonny, he realizes it. I think he's like talked about it heaps on those stories. And he's like, yeah, I know, I'm not the greatest commentator, but I bring that sense of where he knows that he can connect, and I feel like they'll always keep him on for that. And I think that's what you're sort of alluding to into Mills.
Now, see, that's the difference between Sonny Bill and Mills on the show. Mm-hmm. See, here's Mills, he's a brown face on the white show, having a white voice. Mm-hmm. Here's Sonny Bill on the white show, brown face, even though he's brown face with a brown voice. Mm-hmm. See the difference?
You remember when he had the suit off and he was like in a singlet or something like that?
Yeah.
Sonny Bill, he was like sitting aside, because it was hot, I think. It was a Blues game. And he panned the camera over.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, look at this guy, man. It's just like chilling, like, you know. Oh, man, that guy's commentating, man. We discussed it. We were cracking up. There was a game when they threw it to him. He's like, yeah. And he just, but then afterwards the game, you see why he's there. You know, he's that guy. And like, I think it was Akita he interviewed. And, man, Akita idolizes that guy. Like, I think every poly player sees so much respect into him. And I think that's why they're seeing Adi now at that space. Like, he's at that level where one thing and they all listen to him. Yeah, so Akita was like, just like really in awe of like seeing that guy interview. Oh yeah, I think that's what Sonny brings. And they're still sticking him around. Like, so they obviously still want him for that.
And that's good. That's a good thing. And I think that's where I was getting at with our mainstream TV here. With even when we saw that video with what Taika was saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he was talking about. Like when the Polynesians gonna own their own stuff, see their own stuff on TV.
Yeah.
I think ESPN has evolved. I think African Americans, they've already done it.
Yeah.
They've already got their own. It's when you see that if you look on YouTube, if you look up Michael Irving top three playmakers, and see that segment, and like that is hip hop.
Yeah.
You know, that is Black America. On the mainstream platform, doing the way they're doing it, and they're that, and it's cool to see. When are we gonna have that?
Yeah, I guess you know, in terms of Mills, I think he's having him there first now. It's gonna start it. I don't know. It's really trying to figure out who that person would be. But I hope that having him there, because that's actually the first person that actually talked to me, because I always thought it was cool having Mills there. But no, no one has ever said. But you're probably the first person that's ever told me that about.
It's a good start.
Yeah. He's actually there.
Having a Samoan guy on the white shirt,
and then they dropped Justin Marshall for him. So it was like, man, that's a big call from Sky to do that. So I think Sky just wasn't ready for that guy, Justin Marshall.
I mean, Justin Marshall, he's himself. Everyone knows he's himself.
But like, it's just, I do hope for it, and I think there are people like that. What's his name? I look at the guy Brooke on radio. Oh, they used to be on radio. He does some of the basketball stuff.
Oh, Brooke Roscoe.
Yeah. He brings his own flavor to it, and I think he's on Crowd Goes Wild. Crowd Goes Wild is like known for that. It's like a real chill, like how do you say the word, like funny type vibe. And he also brings it to the other stuff he does. So I guess that's the kind of thing that we're trying to look for. The difference between us though, it's because I guess in terms of America, their humor is different too. So like they're real out there. So. But we have a humor here that we can sort of tap into and how we address it into sports. But yeah, I think Crowd Goes Wild is like an example that they're like that kind of show, I think they've got that improvised guy who goes around and does the Warrior stories, and he's just crack up as it is.
Yeah. But he's himself.
Yeah. That's what I mean, yeah. Oh, so you're like hoping for something like that? I'm
just hoping that we can be ourselves on, like Sonny Bill.
Yeah. And there's a limit too, because like you can tell who's being themselves and then tell who's like trying to fake being brown. It's like, Sully, you don't say you like that, Sully. You're not that guy, Sully. But yeah, Sonny Bill's one's cracker, man. That always get me when it panned over to me. I just like, it's like sitting there, and because he's still fit and still, the guys up in the box were like parlanging him, and they're like, "What the hell is this guy up to?" And that was too funny, man. Hopefully one day. Hopefully, I'm really praying for it one day that it happens, and I guess you'll see a lot of our athletes sort of see that and they'll know that that's there's more people there. But yeah, good on Mills, good old Malili. Did you see the segment they did when they went to Samoa to cover Moana's game? He went back to where he was born, because I think he was born in Samoa. And took his kids there. It was cool seeing that.
I remember that.
Little Mills.
Sweet also.
Oh man.
I want to get into someone else. Tailtop's been staring at me
for
the past 2 hours. Okay, man. Man, you're doing. I'm jealous because man, you're doing your dream job, man. If you watch sports for a living and just talk about it afterwards, man, I don't care, man. That's the best job ever, man.
Thanks. Like honestly, I've had people say that to me, and I always tell them, I was like, look, I feel like I was fortunate enough that I sort of got myself into the space, but in all honesty, it is because New Zealand sports culture, man, it's so like everyone religiously, in terms of rugby itself, let's talk about rugby, everyone just sees it at that peak and pinnacle of it. So it's like, it's cool, but it's like, it has its own challenges too. So, but I'm grateful, like there's no taking back, because like, like as you said, I've had my mates and say, man, that's cool, like, get to see those players, and sometimes that always gets me, keeps me grounded of what I know that I should be here for, and that's what I'm doing. And because there are times when I'm just like, man, I can't be bothered, and then when I'm in these things and I see it, and I'm like, look, you're here for a reason, and I know I'm just not being here for myself, that there's a whole other line of people that can come through. And whether it's between media reporting or it's through a podcast, someone that's doing a freelancing his own Instagram content, Facebook content, hopefully it does inspire something. If it does, yeah. So I'm praying for that it does sort of create something. But it is a good job, but it also is has its own challenges, which is the case with anything else. But yeah, man, I'm grateful for that and grateful to be here, to be honest. Really grateful to be here.
Thank you for coming, man. My final question, where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years?
Next 5-10 years. So I've got the Sideline Samoa Instagram page. So that's just the Samoan sports thing. And the next 5 to 10 years, I hope that it branches out, because I'm at 1K followers now, but that was a real big struggle trying to get that, because it's all organic stuff, I don't have a team behind me that's doing it, because there's a lot of sports with Samoans, and so hopefully by then it's like I've got a good set idea of how that can be sort of like this, our own channel thing for me, and how that can be something where, the whole talk about having people come through a platform, maybe that can be where specifically local athletes in Samoa, like your Miracle Failangis, that the more Miracle Failangis that are in Samoa. So if we really want to know what's going on in Samoa rugby, these are the players to ask in Samoa. In terms of myself, in terms of the job, hopefully we will be at a good stage of TP, Transpacifica, and hopefully have just gotten some kind of presence and gained some trust within the community, because at the same time, you don't want to be like and I mean as well, like you don't want to be a dickhead with how you come across with your stuff. So it's a lot of humbling and leveling yourself to the ground when you go to these stories, because, and Samoans, the people that are going Samoans, come, man, they look at you, they're like, man, who the hell is this guy, you know? So it's like, I really want to be like, you know, like speak for Lorenzo's case. He's worked hard and everyone sees him, they know who he is. And we have, for instance, in our work to John Pulu, everyone sees that guy and that's him. So, you know, you want to be at that sort of stage where it's like everyone sort of knows you and trusts you. And I know there'll be challenges, but it's all part of it too. And and just hopefully by then to create some kind of income for myself to sort of set up my brothers in Samoa and also my family, you know. Obviously, that's the girl helping out them and my parents. So hopefully being stable enough to do that, which is hard, obviously, nowadays with everything going up. And just giving back as I can to the Pacific community. And hopefully with abs by the time. That's all, man. Thanks, man.
Nice also. Thank you.
Sweet, man. Thanks.